Chapter 405. The painting of messy rocks on the summit of the Jiuyin Ancient People Mountain, a beautiful figure stood with a sword in her hand. Her blue dress seemed to blend with the clouds, making her look like an immortal. Her beauty was indescribable. However, there was always a cold and arrogant aura around her. Her back also looked a little lonely. The long sword flew across the mountain wall like a rainbow. Countless sword rays fell on it like a gust of wind. Yi Heilan's sword technique was messy. At this moment, she didn't seem to be a Renhuang anymore. She was just swinging her sword wildly to vent the chaos in her heart. The next morning. Although Qin Xian was a Renhuang, he still left the room when the sky was slightly bright. When Long Chen woke up, Qin Xian had already prepared food and toiletries. Looking at this scene, Long Chen sat on the edge of the bed in a daze. His mind was filled with a myriad of thoughts. If there were no grudges in this life and no fetters from his previous life, he would rather return to the north of the northern region and live a simple life. However, he clearly knew that being ordinary in this world might be a sin. The strong could shake the world with a raise of their hand, while the weak couldn't withstand a single blow. As a ruler in his previous life, he had seen too much bloodshed. Even in the 10 regions of the sky, once a strong cultivator was angry, there would still be corpses floating for thousands of miles. Not only that, Long Chen knew that the sovereign transcendence would never let him go in order to find a way to become a great emperor. The battle that killed him in his previous life might come a little later, but it would come eventually. Just like how his mother was taken away by the people of the sky region. The sovereign transcendence would use all means to raise his cultivation as soon as possible, but in the end, it would all be for naught. Young master, young master. It's time to eat. What are you thinking about? Qin Xian wiped the sweat off his forehead and stared at Long Chen in confusion. There seemed to be a slight blush on his cheeks. He thought of how the two of them slept in each other's arms yesterday. Although they didn't sleep together, they still enjoyed it. When he thought up to here, Long Chen couldn't help but reveal a teasing smile on the corners of his mouth, and he teased, delicate hands and cherry-red lips, how could you do such a simple thing? As soon as Long Chen's voice fell, Qin Xian's entire face turned red. She bit her lower lip lightly, feeling extremely shy. Yesterday's slender hands and fiery red lips had allowed Long Chen to enjoy something that wasn't simple. Young master, do you still want to eat? If not, Qin Xian is leaving. Seeing Long Chen's flirtatious expression, Qin Xian stomped her foot angrily and turned to leave. Long Chen couldn't help but laugh. He reached out his right hand and hugged Qin Xian in his arms. With his current cultivation, not to mention washing his face and hands, even if he didn't eat or drink, he wouldn't feel the slightest bit of discomfort, and his body wouldn't be stained in the slightest. Young master, when will we be able to get married in front of master and madam? Qin Xian wants to stay by your side forever, and I also want to be your wife. Qin Xian snuggled up in Long Chen's arms like a kitten. Long Chen took a sip of wine and said, after I rescue my mother, we will get married first. That day won't be too far away. In the blink of an eye, 4 or 5 days had passed. Although these few days were dull, Long Chen felt unprecedentedly satisfied. Unfortunately, the 3 mythological beast war souls and many other human emperors were treading on thin ice. The Haoyue ancient clan was like a sword hanging from a beam, and it could fall at any time. However, what made everyone feel relieved was that Ao Tsungcheong came to the Jiuyin ancient people immediately after hearing that Long Chen was still alive. As the young master of the Dark Star organization, Ao Tsungcheong had made the Haoyue ancient clan pay a painful price because of Long Chen's death. Many of the Haoyue ancient clan's affiliated clans had disappeared without a trace because of this. After Ao Tsungcheong arrived at the Jiuyin ancient people, he immediately found Long Chen. When Long Chen saw Ao Tsungcheong coming, he couldn't help but feel agitated. He had heard about what Ao Tsungcheong had done these days. These things might not be worth mentioning in the eyes of others. After all, Ao Tsungcheong was the young master of the Dark Star organization. It was not difficult for him to mobilize the Purple Star assassins. However, Long Chen knew that Ao Tsungcheong was against the Dark Star organization. Long Chen did not thank Ao Tsungcheong, nor did he mention what he had done for the Dark Star organization. He just moved his right hand, and a jar of good wine appeared. Seeing the wine jar in Long Chen's hand, Ascension was slightly stunned. Then, he looked at Long Chen, and the two of them laughed at the same time. Qing Xian, go and make your best dishes. Today, big brother and I will drink on this mountain peak. We won't go back until we're drunk. Long Chen ordered. On the mountain peak, before the wine and dishes were served, Long Chen saw the dense sword marks on the mountain wall. The sword marks were hurried and messy, like a mass of tangled hemp scattered on the mountain wall. Long Chen frowned slightly. He waved his right hand, and a yellow light fell on the mountain wall. As the light fell, the entire mountain wall rippled like water. The sword marks disappeared at a speed visible to the naked eye, as if time was flowing backward. Gradually, a scene appeared. It was meticulously carved on the mountain wall, and it was lifelike. This scene was of a woman hugging a man from behind. Long Chen's body suddenly stiffened, and the light came to an abrupt stop. This scene was the first time the two of them came into contact when he helped Yi Hailan find a way to suppress the 7 ultimate bodies. The fragrance of wine and dishes wafted over. Qing Xian walked over quickly, and her face was full of happiness and satisfaction. It was as if serving Long Chen like this was the happiest thing in her life. Long Chen suddenly withdrew his right hand, and the mountain wall was once again in a mess. Long Chen smiled bitterly and shook his head. He sat on the mountain peak with Ascension, looked at the scenery around them, and drank to their heart's content. After 3 rounds of wine, Ascension said to Long Chen in a deep voice, "That day, I was careless and almost caused you to lose your life. This kind of thing will never happen again. It's not your fault, big brother. Neither of us expected that the Bright Moon Ancient Clan would openly violate the Ancient Clan Treaty." Long Chen shook his head, as if he did not want to see Ascension blame himself. When Ascension heard about the Bright Moon Ancient Clan, he suddenly frowned, and his face became gloomy. He said coldly, "When I came here, I heard that the Bright Moon Ancient Clan had some strange movements in the past few days. This time, I will not sit back and do nothing, even if I have to mobilize the Dark Star organization." Long Chen stared at Ascension. He and Ascension had been through life and death together. In terms of friendship, they were not very close. However, Long Chen was willing to hand over all the newcomers to Ascension. This was because he understood Ascension's character. In his previous life, no one knew Ascension's nature as well as he did. Because of this, Long Chen shook his head and said, "Big brother, you don't have to do this. This time, I have a plan to deal with the Bright Moon Ancient Clan." Ascension could not help but say, "This time, the Bright Moon Ancient Clan has at least dozens of late-stage human emperors and hundreds of middle-stage human emperors. These people have comprehended at least 7 kinds of origin forces." Chapter 406. Handover. Long Chen did not accept Ascension's kindness. He knew how much Ascension hated the Dark Star organization. Moreover, he had never thought that the Bright Moon Ancient Clan would hand over Qing Xian's soul. He already had a plan in mind. Seeing that Long Chen was so insistent, Ascension did not say anything else. On the other side, as one of the 4 overlord clans, the Bright Moon Ancient Clan's actions naturally caused a stir in the entire Waste Realm. 2 heaven-defying Taoists of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan came out of seclusion and led hundreds of human emperors to the Jiuyin ancient people at the fastest speed. It was said that the strength of these 2 heaven-defying Taoists was not below Han Luo's, and they were qualified to compete for the top 3 positions among the Taoists of the various ancient clans. This team of hundreds of people seemed to have reduced in number, but in fact, the strength of each of them was incomparable to the previous 1,000 people. It could even be said that they were not on the same level at all. These people were not only much stronger than the previous 1,000 people, but they had also comprehended far more origin energy than before. In the past, such a terrifying lineup would only appear when the 4 one-star ancient clans fought. Han Luo and the 1,000 human emperors of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan were captured, and the Bright Moon Ancient Clan had lost face in front of the other ancient clans. Less than 100,000 miles from the Bright Moon Ancient Clan to the Join Ancient People, a group of people was moving in a mighty manner, but their direction had deviated from the route to the Join Ancient People. The few human emperors of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan seemed to have noticed the problem immediately. They walked to the two heaven-defying Taoists at the front and asked respectfully, "Young masters, our destination is the Join Ancient People." The two heaven-defying Taoists turned back at the same time. They were actually twin brothers. One of them had a gloomy face and looked like an angry man, while the other had a kind face and a gleam in his eyes. He looked very mischievous. The kind-looking man turned back and said with a smile, "There are only 5 days left to the Join Ancient People. It's not easy for the two of us to be released. Let us play for 2 more days." That old man furrowed his brows, as he spoke in a low voice, "But young Master Han Luo still has the souls of 1,000 human emperors in his hands." Poochie. Just as the old man finished speaking, he saw the angry Taoist move and appear in front of him. In the next moment, he tore the old man's body apart. The bloody scene sent chills down the spines of the Renhuangs who were following them for hundreds of meters. "Sigh, second brother, you're still so impulsive. But I don't think anyone will stop us from playing for 2 days. As for that young man from the north of the northern region who is comparable to a heaven-defying knife, he will die sooner or later anyway, so let him live for a few more days." As soon as this person finished speaking, he had already dashed off into the distance. His target was a 2-star ancient clan that was situated on a mountain ridge. The many Renhuangs behind him looked at the old man who was only left with his spiritual soul and shuddered. One of the old men stepped forward and said to the old man with the spiritual soul, "The two of them have been suppressed in the sacrificial moon hall by the clan leader for many years. Their personalities have long been unpredictable. Don't say anything more, that's right. If they want to play, then let them play. With their strength and our support, even the hidden assassins won't be able to save Longchen in a short period of time. He's already a corpse, so we don't have to worry." Everyone nodded. These hundreds of Renhuangs were actually somewhat fearful of these two heaven-defying knives. The sun rose and set. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. Many of the Renhuangs in the Bright Moon Ancient Clan looked very stiff. They had not rested at all these 2 days. This was because every day and every night, there would be miserable cries accompanied by strange laughter that reached their ears. That feeling still made their hair stand on end when they recalled it. The miserable cries stopped. The two heaven-defying Taoists had also returned. Everyone looked at the two of them with their eyes wide open at this moment. They saw that the kind-hearted eldest of the two was holding thousands of spiritual light balls in his hand. The spiritual light balls were like the screams of ghosts. They had all been refined into resentful spirits by him. They would never be reincarnated. The second eldest, whose face was full of anger, was very satisfied at this moment. He rubbed the necklace on his neck with both hands and asked, "Eldest brother, what do you think of my necklace?" Everyone trembled, and a chill ran down their spines. The necklace on his neck was not a necklace, but a skull of a child. However, these skulls were strangely small, as if they had not fully developed. No one dared to say anything more. They followed the two of them and headed toward the Join Ancient People. After the two of them left, the 2-star ancient clan that sat on the ridge turned into a land of death. Their deaths were all extremely miserable. The most outrageous thing was that in a square in the center of the clan, there were the corpses of pregnant women. Their abdomens were all torn open. Under the river of blood, there seemed to be the screams of ghosts. Although the two Taoists did not care about Longchen at all, they knew where their target was. The next 5 days did not delay at all. It took them 5 days to arrive in front of the Join Ancient People. At this moment, the sect-protecting array of the Join Ancient People had been opened by the 3 divine beasts. The 3 divine beast souls' faces were completely gloomy. After a short observation, they discovered the terrifying strength of the hundreds of people. Not only that, but the twin brothers also gave them a sense of danger. The Kirin woman said in a low voice, "Go find Master." He said that he had a plan. Just as he finished speaking, he saw that Longchen had appeared not far away. He nodded slightly at everyone, indicating that they should not act rashly. the two Taoists of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan seemed to be very impatient. With a wave of their hands, beams of light bombarded the sect-protecting array. Bang! 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 The light array above the Join Ancient People was like a tide, and layers of ripples spread out. With a wave of their hands, the two of them had mobilized nearly 40 types of origin forces. Everyone gasped. The two of them had nearly 20 types of origin forces each, which meant that their strength was even above that of the heaven-defying Taoist Han Luo. The attacks of the two came like a tsunami, causing the expressions of many people in the array to change drastically. An elder of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan walked out from behind the two Taoists and said coldly, "Quickly hand over Han Luo and the souls of the human emperors. Today, I will let you die a quick death." The dignity of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan is not to be offended. The human emperors of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan had mocking expressions on their faces. Even though they were separated by the array, they could clearly feel the strength of the people behind Long Chen. The human emperors were far inferior to them. This made them very puzzled. How could such a weak lineup capture Han Luo and kill 1,000 human emperors? The light above the huge array continued to shine. Long Chen walked to the front, looked at the people of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan, and said indifferently, "Hand over Han Luo and the souls of 1,000 human emperors." "I will naturally hand them over." Long Chen paused. "Unfortunately, I will not hand them over to you." Chapter 407. A hidden clan. Everyone's eyes were focused on Long Chen. Last time, he had almost defeated the Bright Moon Ancient Clan by himself. Now that he had not recovered from his serious injuries, what else could he do? Lines of runes quickly appeared in the void, but the two Taoists of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan did not seem to see them. On the contrary, the few elders in the lead frowned as if they were thinking about something. As Long Chen continued to draw in the sky with the power of the origin, the entire space seemed to vibrate. When he finished the last stroke, a loud roar came from the void. Roar! In front of Long Chen, an illusory lion roared in the sky. When the few elders in the lead of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan saw this scene, they suddenly trembled. Their expressions changed drastically, and they cried out, "The totem of the three-headed Golden Lion Clan." "You are from that hidden clan," the elder's voice reverberated. When the many human emperors behind him heard this, their faces instantly turned pale, and they frantically retreated. Only the two Taoists did not seem to be affected at all. They knew nothing about the so-called Golden Lion Clan. Long Chen was inside the Join Ancient People's array. His eyes were as calm as water as he stared at the people of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan and said, "It's too late to leave now." Swoosh. 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 As soon as he finished speaking, the space where the Golden Lion runes that had just been carved suddenly collapsed, and burly giants stepped out from it. More than a dozen people stood in the sky above Long Chen in a flash. These people could actually fly in the void of the waste realm. These 10 people were shining with golden divine light, and their pure golden curly hair was inexplicably noble. As soon as the 10 people appeared, the human emperors of the Join Ancient People felt a powerful blood energy sweep out, as if these 10 people were huge furnaces. "Were you the one who sent back the news a few days ago using the secret technique of our clan? Where is Han Luo?" The burly man in the lead stared at Long Chen and asked. "You don't have the bloodline of our clan. Why do you know the teleportation runes of our clan?" Long Chen did not reply. He merely smiled and said, "The first Taoist of the three-headed Golden Lion Clan. Luo Yang, I know that you have been looking for Han Luo and the Bright Moon Ancient Clan for revenge. This is Han Luo's soul. Beside him are the other two Taoists of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan, as well as many Renhuangs." As soon as Long Chen finished speaking, he moved his right hand, and the spiritual souls of the 1,000 human emperors and Han Luo of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan appeared before everyone. Han Luo. Luo Yang was still a little surprised that Long Chen knew his name, but now that he saw Han Luo, his eyes were completely filled with anger. Han Luo's weak soul started to tremble the moment he saw Luo Yang. The three-headed Golden Lion Clan was a hidden clan. They had never participated in any battles in the wasteland. However, when he had spread the moon seeds, there were 3 yellow-haired sisters. In the end, the 3 women were robbed of everything by him and died. Later, he found out that the 3 women were actually the twin sisters of Luo Yang, the first Taoist of the Golden Lion clan. Hand this person over to me. I want him to pay the price that he will regret for the rest of his life. Luo Yang's voice was filled with murderous intent. Long Chen stared at him and said, I will hand this person over to you, but perhaps you and I can make a deal. However, right now, I need you to kill everyone in the Bright Moon Ancient clan. How dare you? One of the clan members behind Luo Yang suddenly shouted. Air billowed as he said coldly, Your Excellency's method of killing with a borrowed knife is too despicable. Luo Yang, don't listen to what this person says. Don't forget the restrictions that the clan leader has placed on you. The Bright Moon Ancient clan is not as simple as it seems. Luo Yang waved his right hand and motioned for this person to shut up. However, his eyes narrowed slightly as he stared coldly at Long Chen. After a long while, he said in a deep voice, Are you so sure that your deal will move me? Your clan is nothing in my eyes. Long Chen shook his head and said, You will definitely agree to this deal, and so will your Golden Lion clan. However, if you don't act now, the people of the Bright Moon Ancient clan will all run away. You kill their physical bodies, and I will destroy their souls. Luo Yang looked into the distance. Apart from the 2 Taoists who had not moved, the other hundreds of human sovereigns had already fled. He looked deeply at Long Chen and said coldly, You better hope that your words can move me. Otherwise, your clan will be buried with them today. As soon as Luo Yang finished speaking, he rushed out of the Jiuyin Ancient People's protective array. Roar! With a shake of his body, he turned into a ferocious lion. The golden light around his body was like the scorching sun. There were 3 huge heads on his body. Even the 3 divine beast fighting souls could not help but look askance at his terrifying aura. Seeing Luo Yang rush out, the other 9 people behind him glared fiercely at Long Chen. With a cold snort, they also rushed out. The 10 of them turned into their bloodline and flew away like 10 suns in the sky. Although the hundreds of human sovereigns of the Bright Moon Ancient clan were extremely powerful, they could not fly and were quickly caught up. The mouth of the giant lion that Luo Yang had turned into was filled with murderous intent. He said coldly, Kill them all. Swoosh! 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 As soon as he finished speaking, countless divine lights covered the sky and the sun. The 10 Taoists of the Golden Lion clan were all at the intermediate stage of the human sovereign realm. Moreover, each of them had at least 30 strands of the power of origin. The hundreds of human sovereigns resisted frantically and roared, Does your clan really want to go to war with my Bright Moon Ancient clan? Luo Yang directly crushed the body of a human sovereign and shouted, Back then, when my 3 sisters were humiliated and died, your clan and I could not live under the same sky. Since the clan leader asked me to leave some leeway with your clan, today, I will only kill your physical bodies. Kill all of them. Leave no one alive. The divine lights covered the sky and the sun, and the earth trembled. Among the Jiuyin Ancient People, no one dared to step out of the protective clan formation. Long Chen stared at Luo Yang. He knew that Luo Yang only needed an excuse. This kind of hatred was like the enmity of his previous life. It had to be washed away with blood. The 10 Golden Lion clan members faced hundreds of human sovereigns and 2 Taoists of the Bright Moon Ancient clan. They were not at a disadvantage, but it was not easy for them either. The Bright Moon Ancient clan, 3 other 1-star ancient clans, and the 10 reclusive clans. The Waste Realm is going to be muddied. Long Chen murmured as he stared outside. As soon as he finished speaking, he took a step forward and slowly walked out of the Jiuyin Ancient People's formation. Although the 10 burly men had monstrous combat strength, it would not be easy for them to kill hundreds of human sovereigns. Seeing Long Chen walk out, the 3 divine beast fighting souls followed closely behind. Many human sovereigns also joined the battle. The moment Long Chen appeared, the 2 Taoists of the Bright Moon Ancient clan immediately looked at Long Chen. When the 2 Golden Lion clan members saw this, they sneered and stepped aside. Chapter 408. Transaction. Although the two Taoists of the Bright Moon Ancient clan were very strong, they seemed to be mentally impaired. As soon as Long Chen walked out of the array, they immediately focused all their attention on Long Chen. Long Chen frowned when he saw the two of them. One of them even had a bloody baby's head hanging from his neck, swish swish. The Karen lady and the Yazi fighting soul quickly stood in front of Long Chen and blocked his path. They knew that Long Chen had just stepped into the Renhuang plane when he suppressed thousands of Renhuangs. His internal injuries were severe, and he had not recovered from them yet. If he were to face the two of them, he would probably be at a disadvantage. Long Chen stared at the two of them and said in a deep voice, "The insides of your souls have been tempered by arrays since you were young. You've long been like walking corpses. You only have cultivation. It's really sad." Unfortunately, one of them still had a kind face, while the other had an angry face. Their eyes were fixed on Long Chen. Bang! As soon as Long Chen finished speaking, the two of them immediately clashed with the two divine beast fighting souls. Yi Hailan and Qin Xian also rushed out at the same time. Not far away, a member of the Golden Lion clan cut a human sovereign of the Haoyu ancient clan into two with his sword. He stared at Long Chen from afar and sneered, "A guy who can only hide behind his friends and women actually wants to make a deal with my Golden Lion clan." When Luo Yang finishes venting his anger, he will realize that he has been deceived by you today. Humph, I think this person just wants to use us to defeat the Bright Moon Ancient clan. How strong can he be? Ridiculous. Hearing their words, Long Chen didn't get angry. Instead, he looked at the people in front of him and said, "All of you, stand behind me. Leave these two to me." Yi Hailan, Qin Xian, Ao Tsunqiong, and the Divine Beast Fighting Soul all stared at Long Chen worriedly. Although Long Chen had spoken, none of them took a step back. "Stand down," Long Chen ordered in a deep voice. Although the three Divine Beast War Souls were unwilling, they didn't dare to disobey Long Chen's order and took the lead to retreat. Seeing that Long Chen was so insistent, the others had no choice but to withdraw. When the two Taoists of the Bright Moon Ancient clan saw that no one could stop them, they frantically rushed toward Long Chen. They did not look like the Taoists of a large family clan at all. They were simply two bloodthirsty beasts. However, they had only taken 10 steps when their bodies suddenly froze on the spot. This scene caused everyone in the surroundings to be incomparably stunned. All of their faces were filled with doubt. The two disciples of the Golden Lion clan who were close to them frowned and asked in confusion, "What's going on? Why aren't they moving? What did he do?" Although these two fellows seemed to be delirious, their battle prowess is definitely not weak. How can this be? This thought appeared in everyone's mind. Since the two of them had arrived, they had been attacking the protective array of the Bright Moon Ancient clan. Their strength had even surpassed Han Luo's. At least with their strength, if they were to escape with all their might today, they might have a chance to survive. However, they did not seem to know how terrifying the Golden Lion clan was, nor did they have the slightest judgment of the situation. It was as if in their eyes, there was only the task of killing Long Chen. One of the disciples of the Golden Lion clan seemed to be quite familiar with Long Chen. When he killed a human emperor of the Bright Moon Ancient clan, he deliberately prepared to self-destruct his body. There were also several divine souls that forced their way into the battle circle between Long Chen and the two Taoists. However, a scene that left them dumbfounded appeared. The self-destructing divine souls did not cause any damage. The moment the divine souls of the human emperor level appeared, they were instantly crushed into powder. What a powerful divine soul. The two of them took a deep look at Long Chen, then immediately snorted coldly and went to help Luo Yang take it. Once again, a great battle broke out outside the Jiuyin ancient people. For many people, this was the first time they learned about the existence of the reclusive clans. They were even more amazed by the powerful strength of the Taoists of the clans. If they appeared in the Waste Realm all year round, the name of the heaven-defying Taoists would have changed. Compared to Long Chen's battle, this battle seemed much more boring. However, everyone knew that it was not because the enemy was too weak, but because they could not compare with the combat power of the Golden Lion clan. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, It was the morning of the second day. After such a long time, the battle finally came to an end. Luo Yang looked at the divine souls of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan, and his heart was still filled with resentment. As Long Chen had said, he did not consider the so-called deal at all. He did not care about the deal that Long Chen had mentioned. What he wanted to do was to slaughter the Bright Moon Ancient Clan and avenge his three sisters. If the clan leader had not personally ordered him not to kill the people of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan, he would have killed all the divine souls on the ground at this moment. On the other hand, Long Chen's battle was very strange. It was so strange that it made one's hair stand on end. From the beginning of the battle, the two of them had to stop for a few hours every 10 steps they took. Now, they were more than 30 meters away from Long Chen. Long Chen did not seem to be afraid of the two of them at all, and he had no intention of attacking. The two of them were struggling. It was not because their cultivation was insufficient, but because their divine souls were causing trouble. Their divine souls, which were riddled with holes, were destined to only obey orders, and their personalities were distorted. However, it was precisely because their divine souls were riddled with holes. Long Chen directly began to bombard the divine souls of the two of them with the power of his divine soul. He wanted to use this power to shatter the formation in their bodies. Just as the two of them were about to get close, they collapsed to the ground. The bloodthirsty look in their eyes was no longer there, but they were still roaring madly as if they had gone mad. Whoosh! Luo Yang descended from the sky. The long sword in his hand was as long as he was tall, and he directly cut off the heads of the two of them. He said seriously, "It's time to talk about your deal. What are you going to do with these hundreds of Renhuang souls?" At this moment, there were no longer 9 people behind him. There were only 5 left. It was obvious that they had paid a painful price in the face of hundreds of powerful Renhuangs. Long Chen stared at the divine souls that were slowly emerging from the ground. Just as Long Chen had expected, the divine souls of the two of them were as messy as an ant's nest. Long Chen looked at the many divine souls that were crawling on the ground. He suddenly stretched out his right hand. What happened next shocked Luo Yang and the others. The divine souls of hundreds of Renhuang cultivators were actually captured by Long Chen. "It's time to talk about our deal. My deal is to give you a chance to seek revenge on the Bright Moon Ancient Clan. I will give you a way to destroy the Bright Moon Ancient Clan." Long Chen stared at Luo Yang and said. Before Luo Yang could say anything, the remaining 5 people behind him said coldly, "Today, the physical bodies of 5 of our path chosen were destroyed because of you. Now, you are saying such big words. I think you are tired of living." As this person spoke, he drew his sword and was about to slash at Long Chen. Chapter 409. People of the Tianyu domain. Long Chen's deal was to annihilate the Haoyu clan. His words made the surrounding people bewildered. Long Chen stared at Luo Yang and said, "Why don't you go in and have a chat?" The people behind Luo Yang stared at Long Chen and sneered, "Luo Yang, why are you talking so much nonsense with him? I think he's just messing with us." However, Luo Yang did not think so. He saw how Long Chen could restrain hundreds of souls of human sovereigns with just a wave of his hand. It was not impossible for him to be so bold. Luo Yang hated the Bright Moon Ancient Clan to the core. However, he did not dare to attack the Bright Moon Ancient Clan because of his family. If Long Chen really had a way to deal with the Bright Moon Ancient Clan, it would be great news. Luo Yang's desire to get rid of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan was no less than Long Chen's. Luo Yang saw that Long Chen had collected all the souls and was about to walk into the Jiuyin ancient people without looking back. Luo Yang motioned for the people behind him to wait and followed closely behind. Only Long Chen and Luo Yang were left in the hall. Long Chen smiled and said, "Do you know why your clan doesn't dare to attack the Bright Moon Ancient Clan?" Luo Yang frowned and said in a deep voice, "Speak frankly." In fact, this was what puzzled Luo Yang the most. Among the 4 one-star ancient clans, the Bright Moon Ancient Clan was not the strongest. However, they were the most high-profile in their actions. They were a reclusive clan, and no one knew where they were. However, Luo Yang knew that the Bright Moon Ancient Clan and the Golden Lion Clan were not far apart geographically. they had been in constant conflict for many years. Because of their high-profile actions, they had hostile relationships with many forces. Many people wanted to get rid of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan, but no one could shake their position in the Waste Realm. He heard the most that the Bright Moon Ancient Clan was not as simple as it seemed. Longchen stared at Luo Yang with a cold smile. He seemed to have guessed what Longchen was thinking. He said in a deep voice, "Because behind the Bright Moon Ancient Clan, there is a passage in the Forbidden Land that connects to the 10th heaven." Hiss. Luo Yang's expression changed when he heard this. He knew very little about the ancient clans below the 3-star level in the 10 Directions Heaven domain. He only knew that they did not belong to the Wasteland domain. However, Luo Yang, as the heaven-defying Tao disciple of the reclusive family, knew a lot. The 10 Directions Sky Territory was a vast space that stood above the entire ancient barren land. It was said that each space was the size of the entire barren land. There were many experts in each space, and some of them were even above the sovereign realm. Upon hearing the two words, Luo Yang finally understood why the various ancient clans did not dare to make a move against the Bright Moon Ancient Clan. If the force behind the Bright Moon Ancient Clan was a big clan in the Heaven domain, then no one in the entire wasteland would dare to push them too hard. Luo Yang pondered for a moment and felt that Long Chen's words were reasonable and not false. He took a deep breath and looked at Long Chen even more seriously. He said in a deep voice, "If what you said is true and the Bright Moon Ancient Clan is backed by a big clan in the Heaven domain, then the destruction of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan is just nonsense. I will pretend that nothing happened today and will not pursue this matter. However, I want you to refine all the divine souls of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan with the origin energy and let them suffer the pain of soul refining." When Luo Yang heard about the Heaven domain, he had already thrown the idea of destroying the Bright Moon Ancient Clan to the back of his mind. Originally, he wanted to use his identity as the heaven-defying Tao disciple to add fuel to the fire in the World Youth Competition. However, it seemed that the Golden Lion Clan would not take the risk to make a move no matter what. Longchen looked at Luo Yang and shook his head slightly. Although Luo Yang had killed the physical body of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan, he was not a fool. He wanted to borrow Long Chen's hand to truly kill these people and destroy their divine souls. In fact, there is one thing that you are wrong about. The Bright Moon Ancient Clan is actually a clan left behind in the wasteland by the 10 Directions Heavenly Domain. In other words, the Bright Moon Ancient Clan is actually from the Heaven domain. However, so what if they are from the Heaven domain? I still have a way to destroy them. However, I need your help. The two of them continued to chat until the next morning. Luo Yang walked out of the place of the Jiuyin ancient people. Without saying a word, he led the people behind him into the air and left the place. He did not even explain to anyone, nor did he take away the divine soul of the human sovereign of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan. When Longchen walked out of the hall, the 3 divine beast fighting souls and Qing Xian went up to him and asked, "Young master, did you really persuade Luo Yang? Can you really destroy the Bright Moon Ancient Clan?" Longchen did not answer their doubts. Instead, he smiled and said in a deep voice, "The main goal now is not to destroy the Bright Moon Ancient Clan, but to take back your soul." Whoosh! As Longchen waved his hand, the souls of the 2 human sovereigns of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan appeared in front of him. The two of them looked at Longchen with fear in their eyes. They crawled on the ground and trembled. In their eyes, Long Chen's cultivation was only at the level of a human sovereign. However, in front of Long Chen, their divine souls did not have the slightest power to resist. It was as if Long Chen could consign them to eternal damnation with just a thought. "Go back and tell your people to hand over Qing Xian's soul, and I will release all the souls of your people. Otherwise, I will crush all of these souls," Long Chen said in a deep voice. As soon as he finished speaking, he waved his hand and threw the 2 souls out of the place of the Jiuyin ancient people. The 2 of them did not dare to hesitate and ran away frantically. When the remaining people of the 9 giant tribe saw this scene, they shook their heads and smiled bitterly. The Jiuyin ancient people was originally a 3-star ancient clan. However, since the arrival of Long Chen, earth-shattering changes had taken place. In the past, forces like the Bright Moon Ancient Clan could not wait to curry favor with them, let alone be hostile to them. However, Longchen had provoked them time and time again. Moreover, he had killed 3 heaven-defying knife warriors and nearly 3,000 human sovereigns. At this moment, Longchen's name had probably already spread throughout the entire Waste Realm. The Bright Moon Ancient Clan had also completely lost face because of Longchen in the Waste Realm. After doing all this, Longchen led everyone to the side of the 5 peaks that he had left in the Join Ancient People. It was these 5 peaks that allowed many human kings to reach the peak of the Human King realm. Although the number of Human King realm powerhouses far exceeded that of other clans, there were very few powerhouses who could truly step into the Human Sovereign realm. Longchen stared at the 5 peaks and said in a deep voice, "I said that the day I return will be the day you become human sovereigns. It all depends on your luck." As Longchen's voice fell, invisible origins swept out and wrapped around the 5 peaks in a flash. The power of the rules that had been transformed on the peaks were completely solidified at this moment. The 5 peaks were sometimes covered with earth thorns, sometimes violent storms, and sometimes raging fires. Chapter 410. The last man. Many sovereign personages among the Join Ancient People were all stunned. Whether it was the Join Ancient People or the 2 two-star ancient clans of the soul-devouring wolf clan, their faces were flushed, and many of them could not help but tremble. It was not uncommon for the ancient clans to use the power of rules to create a peak Huang. Originally, Longchen's ability to imprint many laws within the 5 elements here was already coveted by the various ancient clans. Now, he actually left the origin condensation method here again. No one in the entire wasteland would be able to inherit the origin, seal off the entire Join Ancient People. If anyone dares to spread the news, kill them without mercy. The Yazi fighting spirit took a deep breath and ordered the people behind him. He knew what Longchen's actions meant. These 5 mountain peaks were practically filled with the origins of the 5 elements. Any human king who cultivated the laws of the 5 elements would have at least a 40% chance of stepping into the human sovereign realm with the help of this place and their own comprehension ability. The corners of Longchen's mouth curled into a smile. The 5 mountain peaks were like the origin source ice on Eternal Origin Mountain. Every power of the 5 elements had its own method of condensing them. How much he could comprehend would depend on himself. On the other side, the 2 elders from the soul-devouring wolf tribe exchanged glances with each other and nodded. Dozens of elders walked up to Longchen and knelt down on one knee in a flash. They shouted, "We are sincerely convinced. From today onwards, we will follow our family and follow our Lord. We will never betray you. Follow my Lord and never betray me. Follow the Lord." Following the dozens of higher-ups, the people from the 2 ancient clans behind them also knelt on the ground and paid their respects to Longchen. The Taotai fighting soul and the Yazi fighting soul could not help but laugh when they saw this. Longchen's lips curled into a faint smile as he teased, "That's enough. Don't think that I won't remember the original agreement. Within a month, I will step into the human sovereign realm. At that time, you will be cursing outside the Bright Moon Ancient Clan for 3 days and 3 nights." Everyone was stunned and laughed, but Longchen had already turned and left. Throughout the Join Ancient People, the human sovereigns from various clans began to organize people who had comprehended the laws of the 5 elements to enter the origins left behind by Longchen. On the other side, while the sovereign personages of Join Ancient People were advancing toward the human sovereign realm, the Bright Moon Ancient Clan in the Wasteland was already in chaos. The Bright Moon Ancient Clan was located in the north of the God Corp's secret realm of the Wasteland. It was located on top of a white jade supreme grade spirit vein. The entire Bright Moon Ancient Clan was like a paradise in the human world, filled with a flourishing aura. However, the ancient giant ancient clan. In the Great Hall, the faces of the old men sitting on the white jade chairs were dark clouds. In the center of them were 2 illusory souls. It's the Join Ancient People again. It's that bumpkin from the north of the northern region again. What kind of opportunity did this person have to be able to go against our Bright Moon Ancient Clan? This person has killed all of our clansmen twice in a row, leaving only their souls behind. At this moment, our Bright Moon Ancient Clan has become the laughing stock of the 4 one-star ancient clans. We must not tolerate this person anymore. Otherwise, he will really think that there is no one left in our Bright Moon Ancient Clan. In their eyes, Longchen was just an idiot who did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. He would fight whoever he bumped into with his own strength. The 2 human sovereign souls in the hall were terrified. They trembled and said, "We heard this person say that he would join forces with the Golden Lion Clan to destroy our Bright Moon Ancient Clan." As soon as they finished speaking, the people around them suddenly stopped talking. There was a brief moment of silence. Then, there was a burst of laughter. One of the skinny old men could not help but shout, "Ignorant child, don't think that you can go against our clan just because you are related to Luo Yan of the Golden Lion Clan. You are overestimating yourself. Destroy our Bright Moon Ancient Clan? I'm afraid no one in the entire Waste region dares to say that." Bang! Bang! Just as everyone was shouting, the 2 human sovereign souls in front of them suddenly swelled and collapsed in an instant. The violent sound and the last shrill roar of the 2 human sovereigns before they died made everyone's face turn completely gloomy. A middle-aged man sitting in the center had a gloomy face. He slowly walked forward, and the people around him lowered their heads slightly. There was a crescent moon totem on the man's forehead. Behind him, there were 3 crescent moons moving one after another. Looking at the 2 human sovereign souls in the air, he said in a deep voice, "This is the woman's soul that person wanted to find." Originally, Han Luo wanted me to add the soul sealing secret technique to this soul. When everyone saw this, they immediately replied, "Clan leader, are we really going to give in to this boy? If we send this soul back, how will the other ancient clans view our Bright Moon Ancient Clan?" As soon as he finished speaking, the middle-aged man waved his hand and said, "Han Xian, you will lead 300 men of sacrifice in this soul to bring back all the human sovereigns of our clan and the Jiuyin ancient people. I will take care of your family for you." When everyone heard this, they stopped talking. One of the old men, who was covered in a deathly aura, slowly stood up from his seat. This person had not said a word from the beginning to the end, but now he had received such a task. Han Xian left the Bright Moon Ancient Clan with 300 men of sacrifice and set off again for the Jiuyin ancient people, Longchen. This was the 3rd time the Bright Moon Ancient Clan had made a move. When he had just left the Bright Moon Ancient Clan, the other 3-star ancient clans had already received the news. In fact, the rise of Longchen had exhausted the Bright Moon Ancient Clan. This was something they were very happy to see. Looking at the 300 men of sacrifice, Han Xian knew that he would not come back from this trip. This was because he was also a man of sacrifice. Since he had failed to break through the human sovereign realm and step into the semi-saint realm 10 years ago, his vitality had been declining day by day. It was difficult to cure him with medicine. Otherwise, how could he, a senior member of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan, have to leave the clan for such a trivial matter? The heavens will not tolerate me. It seems that I won't be able to wait until the opening of the Divine Corp's secret realm. I didn't expect that the last enemy in my life would be a path chosen in the early stage of the human sovereign realm. Clan leader, you really underestimate me. Before you leave, you even mentioned that my wife and children are still in the clan. How can the clan tolerate a dying body like me? In fact, the clan leader of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan did not think too much. With Han Xian's strength, even if he was dying, he would definitely be a powerful force. Han Xian disappeared from the Bright Moon Ancient Clan with the 300 men of sacrifice. His back was full of desolation. Once upon a time, he was also a figure in the Bright Moon Ancient Clan who made all the forces tremble. Now, he was a hero at the end of his road. Less than a day after Han Xian left, a young man rode a sword-winged flying dragon and flew away from the Fengjian clan. Chapter 411. Why did he stay? After Han Xian left the Bright Moon Ancient Clan, the one-star ancient clans and other forces received the news immediately. Han Xian used to be famous in the Bright Moon Ancient Clan. He had even tried to break through to the Sage-to-Be realm, so his strength should not be underestimated. Han Xian's appearance meant that the Bright Moon Ancient Clan was determined to end this farce. Han Xian went all the way to the Jiuyin ancient people. On the way, he was constantly intercepted by various ancient clans. The purpose of the Xian Yuan clan and the other one-star ancient clans was not to kill him, but to recruit him. Killing a dying person would not benefit them at all, but if Han Xian was willing to betray the Bright Moon ancient clan, it would be a great resource for them. The various clans even tempted him with many elixirs that could prolong his life. Unfortunately, Han Xian did not care about them at all. However, because of this, his speed was slowed down. This also led to Jian Shan, who left the Worshipping Sword clan after him, to arrive at the Jiuyin ancient people ahead of time. Jian Shan arrived at the Jiuyin ancient people and immediately found Long Chen. "Master, I'm late." Jian Shan's voice trembled when he saw Long Chen. Although he had been staying in the Worshipping Sword clan for a while, he was still brooding over Long Chen's death. After learning that Long Chen had returned, he finally left after many discussions with the Worshipping Sword clan. When Long Chen saw that Jian Shan was fine, he felt relieved and remembered the Worshipping Sword clan in his heart. If the Worshipping Sword clan had not saved Jian Shan that day, Long Chen might not have been able to save both of them at the same time. This kindness should be repaid. Ao Tsunqiong also admired Jian Shan very much. He waved his hand and took out a pot of good wine to treat everyone to a drink. However, he was interrupted by Jian Shan's serious voice. "Master, quickly leave this place with me. The people sent by the Bright Moon ancient clan are definitely not people we can resist." Long Chen frowned slightly. Jian Shan trusted him very much. Since he had said it so clearly, it must be true. Long Chen asked in a deep voice, "How many people will the Bright Moon ancient clan send this time?" Long Chen had the spiritual souls of many Renhuangs of the Haoyue ancient clan. According to his speculation, the Haoyue ancient clan would not be so unscrupulous. In fact, Long Chen also knew that it was not a wise choice to provoke the Bright Moon ancient clan with his current strength. However, he had to obtain Qin Xian's lost soul. Otherwise, he would never feel at ease. In contrast, the upper echelons of the soul-devouring wolf clan, who originally did not trust Long Chen, were full of confidence. The leaders snorted coldly and said, "By the time they break the array of the Bright Moon ancient clan, the number of Renhuangs in our clan will have multiplied. We may be able to fight them." Because of the origin mountain that Long Chen had set up, they were full of confidence. However, at this time, Jian Shan slowly shook his head and said, "This time, the Bright Moon ancient clan only sent a direct descendant and 300 men of sacrifice." Hearing this, everyone was even more puzzled. If there were only 300 people, with their strength, they could definitely fight. Moreover, Long Chen's injuries had begun to recover. Over the past few days, their strength had not declined. In fact, it was rapidly increasing. The leader this time is Han Xian of the Bright Moon ancient clan. The people of the Fengjian clan told me that if you were to attack, even an ordinary Renhuang of the late stage would not be able to withstand 3 moves from him. However, Jian Shan's next words made everyone's expression change. Jian Shan did not wait for everyone to react and said, "The Fengjian clan said that as long as you are willing, they can accept us or leave the Waste Realm as soon as possible." The Taotai fighting soul and the Yazi fighting soul looked at each other and could not help but frown deeply. They said in a deep voice, "Han Xian is not dead yet?" When he tried to step into the Sage-to-Be realm, didn't he almost exhaust his vitality? If it is really this person, then it will be troublesome. Such a person would not leave his clan under normal circumstances. Is the Bright Moon ancient clan really anxious? When Long Chen saw that everyone was gradually becoming noisy, he could not help but feel a chill in his heart. An expert who was once about to step into the Sage-to-Be realm, even if he failed, his strength was not comparable to any Renhuang. The strength of such a person was not something they could resist. After a moment of silence, Long Chen stared at them and said, "How many origin powers did this person comprehend when he broke through the Sage-to-Be realm? How old was he?" The Taotai fighting soul seemed to know something about this. In fact, with Han Xian's reputation at that time, this information was not a secret. 30 origin powers, 70 years old. Long Chen's eyebrows gradually relaxed when he heard this. Then, Long Chen ordered Jian Shan, You take them to the Fengjian clan. I will stay here alone. However, this clan protection formation must be strengthened before you leave. It must be enough to trap this person for at least 10 days. Everyone originally thought that Long Chen would give the order to retreat, but no one expected that he would choose to stay. Jianshi San and the others knew that Long Chen's attainments and formations were quite deep, but what was the point of trapping this person for 10 days? This person was not someone they could resist at all. Everyone was about to say something, but they were directly stopped by Long Chen. In the next day, Long Chen mobilized almost all the experts above the Human King realm to begin to rearrange the Jiuyin ancient people's formation. This time, everyone was somewhat lucky. If Jianshi San had not informed them in advance, they would have no chance of surviving if they really faced such an expert like Han Xian. A day passed in the blink of an eye. The entire Jiuyin ancient people's formation had cost nearly 10 million top-level spirit stones. When everyone left, they still kept persuading Long Chen. However, no one dared to disobey Long Chen's order. The 3 divine beast fighting souls could only obey. In a short period of time, the entire Jiuyin ancient people had become an empty space. Come out. Long Chen, who was sitting on the mountain peak, suddenly called out in a deep voice. As his voice fell, a beautiful figure slowly walked out from behind a mountain range. This person was Yi Hailan. She was also the second person left among the Jiuyin ancient people. Long Chen stared at Yi Hailan without saying anything. He knew that Yi Hailan was different from Qing Xian. Qing Xian obeyed his every word. In a certain aspect, she was very dependent on Long Chen. Long Chen was her everything. However, Yi Hailan was different. Yi Hailan had his own pride and also his own thoughts. He and Long Chen were more like lovers and confidants. He knew that Yi Hailan was unwilling to leave. No matter how much he said, he would not be able to change her mind. Long Chen flicked his sleeve and swept the stone beside him, motioning for Yi Hailan to sit down. Yi Hailan leisurely walked over without saying anything. In the end, he stood beside Long Chen and did not sit down. Long Chen only pointed at the mountain wall that was filled with swords and asked, "Did you cut this place?" Yi Hailan said, "No." Chapter 412. So what? In the face of Long Chen's bluntness, Yi Hailan stood in place. Her back was against the green mountains, and her long hair was fluttering in the wind. She was so beautiful. When Yi Hailan heard Long Chen's words, she looked into the distance. Her long skirt brushed against Long Chen's cheeks. She said faintly, "Why did you stay?" "For her." Long Chen was stunned. Then, he replied, "That's right. For Qingshuan's sake, I must take back that soul for her. This time, Han Xian came here to kill me. He will definitely take back the soul of the Renhuan of the Bright Moon ancient clan. Then he will definitely bring along Qing Xian's soul." Yi Hailan did not say much. She just nodded slightly and stood beside Long Chen. She did not ask if Long Chen would die. Was he confident? Could he survive? She did not answer why she stayed. She didn't sit on the bluestone beside Long Chen either. A faint fragrance lingered at the tip of his nose, but Long Chen's mind was in a mess. In his previous life, he did not feel the pain of Qing Xian's death and his family's death. He pursued the path of reincarnation all his life. He also regretted Yi Hailan's death for life. But now, Yi Hailan and Qing Xian were both alive and by his side, but he did not know what to do. Yi Hailan was never an ordinary woman. She had the beauty of a banished fairy, an arrogance that ordinary people could not reach, and a loneliness that no one could understand. The two of them stood and sat on the top of the mountain, motionless. It was as if time had stopped at this moment. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, a few days had passed. His clothes fell, and birds and beasts stepped on his shoulders. In addition to the Jiuyin ancient people, the people of the Haoyue ancient clan came. Although Han Xian looked old and was surrounded by the aura of death, his bearing was extraordinary. There seemed to be a unique rhythm between his movements. Behind him were 300 members of the Bright Moon ancient clan. There were many people from the ancient clan standing diagonally behind them. There were 2-star and 3-star ancient clan members, and there were even 1-star ancient clan members. All of them had more or less interacted with Han Xian along the way. After that, they followed Han Xian because they knew that Han Xian would most likely die outside and would not return to the Bright Moon Ancient Clan. This was because they could feel the dense death aura on his body. Han Xian did not organize or drive them away. He wanted to do more for the Bright Moon Ancient Clan and let everyone see him wash away the shame of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan. Han Xian was once a Taoist of the previous generation. How peerless was he? He was also one of the few ancient clans who was trying to break through to the half-saint realm. If he had been able to get into the top 10 in the last competition, he wouldn't have ended up like this. Time and fate. The members of the various ancient clans sighed endlessly. They actually had a rather high opinion of Han Xian. Han Xian turned a deaf ear to everyone's words. With his hands behind his back, he slowly walked to the formation of the Jiuyin ancient people. He did not seem to care about the empty space of the Jiuyin ancient people. He just looked at Long Chen at the top of the mountain and said, "Bring back the soul of my clan's human sovereign. Today, I will only destroy your cultivation and send you out of the waste realm." Han Xian's words were like thunder in everyone's ears. Long Chen and Yi Hailan naturally heard it clearly. The people around them also nodded and secretly praised Han Xian for his magnanimity. He had done everything he could to do this. On the top of the mountain, the leaves fell and the crows flew away. Long Chen finally stood up slowly and jumped to a mountain peak close to Han Xian. He said in a deep voice, "You should break through this formation first." Hearing Long Chen's words, Han Xian frowned slightly and said in a deep voice, "Why do you have to do this?" Seeing that Long Chen did not answer, Han Xian did not say anything more. He moved his feet and disappeared into thin air. When he reappeared, he had already stepped into the formation. Bang! 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 Bolts of lightning struck him from all directions, and a long sword appeared around him in an instant. Like a spirit snake, it shattered the power of the formation in all directions. Although there were many formations, Han Xian could easily break through them. The people in all directions sighed, but they also secretly praised the ingenuity of Long Chen's formation. The 300 men of sacrifice of the Haoyu ancient clan did not make a move without Han Xian's order. 1 day, 2 days. I didn't expect you to be an expert in formations. These formations do not seem strong, but they are connected so tightly. When Han Xian advanced 1,000 meters in the formation, he finally could not help but say, "But these formations can only trap me for a few days at most. What's the point?" In fact, Han Xian was not the only one who had this thought. Even the people outside who had been observing were very puzzled because Long Chen and Yi Hailan were still standing in front and did nothing else. What was the difference between this and waiting for death? Why was there a need to struggle before death? Long Chen did not answer, but he continued to control the formation to surge toward Han Xian. Sometimes the wind was like sword light, sometimes the flames were monstrous, and sometimes the thunder was rolling. In the blink of an eye, another 3 days had passed. Han Xian was still calm and said in a deep voice, "You are using these formations to test me, but what's the point of this?" Han Xian was not in a hurry. To him, this was the last thing he would do for the Haoyu ancient clan. It was not bad to take a long time. He had contributed his life to the strength of the Haoyu ancient clan all his life, and this moment was no exception. This time, Long Chen finally spoke. He stared at Han Xian and said, "Your Excellency, these angels use 8 types of sword techniques, 3 of which are holy techniques and 6 of which are divine techniques. When the holy techniques advance to the perfection stage, they have the intention of merging. The divine techniques reflect each other and have no shortcomings. The only thing missing is a transitional sword technique." Long Chen's words made Han Xian frown for the first time. He was slightly shocked and thought that Long Chen was not weak despite his young age. Han Xian asked casually, "So what? You have 5 types of movement techniques, all of which are holy techniques. However, 3 of them have not reached the perfection stage. You have comprehended 13 types of sword techniques, but they are disorderly and modeled. You have an old illness." Long Chen did not seem to hear Han Xian's words. His voice drifted in the sky. After a short moment of confusion, the people in all directions were full of horror. In these few days, Longchen had studied Han Xian's skills thoroughly. Hearing this, even Han Xian's expression changed. His voice sank slightly, but he still said coldly, "So, what? I can let you merge the holy techniques and have a transitional sword technique. This can make your perfection stage greatly improve, and you will have no regrets. I have the will of sword techniques, which can make your perfection stage complete. I have movement techniques, which are all compatible with your perfection stage. I can help you reach the perfection stage in a short time." Long Chen's next words caused an uproar in all directions. Everyone felt that his voice was like rolling thunder that entered their minds and set off stormy waves. What did he want to do? Was what he said true? Was he, a human king, really capable of doing all this? After a short moment of shock and horror, everyone shook their heads fiercely, thinking that it was impossible to do these things. Chapter 413. The friendship of Gentleman Han Xian continuously passed through the array formation, but in the end, he was blocked by the endless water curtain. He looked at Longchen with a murderous look in his eyes. "Originally, I wanted to cripple your cultivation and send you out of the wasteland. However, based on what you've said, if you can really do that, then I can't let you live," Han Xian said coldly. In reality, they were different from the onlookers. In his heart, he already believed 70% of what Longchen said, because Longchen's words were completely accurate. Just this point alone was enough for him to see how terrifying Longchen was. Such a young Renhuang might not be inferior to the heaven-defying Great Path children of several great forces, but this was not enough to make him worry that Longchen would threaten the Bright Moon Ancient clan. However, Longchen's words had shaken him. If he wanted to stop Longchen from becoming an enemy of the Bright Moon Ancient clan, he would have to kill him. Longchen looked at Han Xian, who was already very close to him. He frowned and said, "You'll need at least 5 days to break this last formation. Why don't you sit down and have a good talk?" This time, Longchen felt helpless. He had never thought that there would be such a person in the Bright Moon Ancient clan. He had never seen this person in his previous life. However, after thinking about it, with this person's current physical condition, he had probably died long ago in his previous life. It was normal that he had never seen him before. Han Xian waved his right hand and strands of lava-like origin energy landed on the water screen. He began to break through the formation. He sat on a stone platform not far from the water curtain. Just as Longchen had said, it would take at least 5 days to break through the water curtain with the magma origin power. Han Xian sat down. Longchen said in a deep voice, "You should know that you have less than 7 days to live, and I can help you extend your life." Longchen wanted to force Han Xian to retreat without a fight in exchange for Qing Xian's soul. Otherwise, if he were to fight against someone of Han Xian's level, his chances of winning would be less than 30%. An expert who had almost stepped into the half-saint realm was definitely not someone an ordinary Emperor realm cultivator could compare to. Han Xian stared at Longchen with a grave expression, and he replied, "Help me extend my life. Do you know why my life force is constantly draining, and even the Alchemist Guild's divine-level alchemists are unable to do anything about it?" Knowing that the formation could not be broken in a day or two, Han Xian was still very patient. The collapse of the source space may erode life force, but it may not be impossible to recover. Longchen said casually. While the two of them were talking, the people outside who were separated by many formations had no idea what they were talking about. Everyone was talking about it. Many people vaguely saw Han Xian sitting at the front, but many doubts arose in their hearts. Some people even began to guess that he had really been persuaded by Longchen. After all, the conditions that Longchen had just proposed were too tempting. If he could really do it, he might be able to persuade Han Xian. Han Xian took a deep look at Longchen and said with a smile, "I never thought that there would be such a person in this world. Many people only know that I failed to break through, but they don't know why my life force is constantly decreasing, but you clearly know. It's a pity that since you know this, you shouldn't talk nonsense." The collapse of the source space in your body is incurable in this world, and no one can save you unless it's an expert above the saint level. Longchen said, I can't save the collapse of the source space, but there's one person who can save you, and that's you. As long as you reach the sage to be saint level, the source space will condense again. Longchen's words stunned Han Xian, and there seemed to be a raging fire burning in the depths of his eyes. Condensing the source space was the key to stepping into the saint level. Longchen wanted him to bypass the source space and enter the saint level first, which was the opposite of what he wanted. Such words were indeed feasible, but the difficulty was as high as the sky. Moreover, it was impossible for him to do it with his current life force. Seeing that Han Xian's expression had changed slightly, Longchen quickly prepared to strike while the iron was hot. However, just as he was about to speak, Han Xian waved his hand and said, Maybe you really have a way, but I won't let you go today, so you'd better not say it out loud. There's no need to ask anymore. The more you say, the more terrifying you make me feel. The more terrifying you are, the more you'll threaten my Bright Moon Ancient clan. Longchen's words were stuck in his throat, and he shook his head and smiled bitterly. In this world, he was not afraid of villains and enemies. This was because he had encountered too many of these two types of people in his previous life, and he had killed too many of them. What he was most afraid of was a gentleman like Han Xian. It was unfortunate to have such a person as his enemy, but it was also a great blessing. Haha, it seems that today's battle between you and me is inevitable. Longchen waved his hand, and 3 jars of strong liquor appeared. With a casual move, they fell into the formation. Without waiting for Han Xian to speak, Longchen continued, In today's battle, no matter who wins or loses, I can return the souls in my hands to you, except for Han Luo. As for the soul of Qing Xian in your hands, let her return to her body. Han Xian stared at the 3 jars of strong liquor, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He nodded slightly, opened the wine seal, and said to Longchen, I see that you're not an ordinary person. For the next few days, you and I will be friends. Wouldn't it be great to talk about the world? Han Xian's face was old, but his movements were full of confidence. Longchen sighed. In his previous life, he had a deep understanding of the Bright Moon Ancient clan, and he even had a lot of hatred against them. He had never thought that there would be such a person in the Bright Moon Ancient clan. They raised the wine and drank, and the two of them chatted like this. The world was vast, and the friendship between gentlemen was vast. Although the people outside could not see it, they could vaguely see it, and they were all puzzled. In the blink of an eye, 2 days had passed. The formation in front of Han Xian was getting weaker and weaker, and he even admired Longchen a little. In these 2 days, Longchen had really treated him as a friend. Not only that, but Longchen's words really shocked him. Whether it was cultivation, formation, alchemy, or the world's strange stories, Han Xian had dabbled in them all. His broad vision was not something that a young man could compare with. If you didn't become an enemy of the Bright Moon Ancient clan, you and I could have become bosom friends. Han Xian showed a bitter expression and drank the wine in his hand. Longchen did not say much. For the first time, he was full of respect for his enemy. This person's breadth of mind and temperament was somewhat similar to his elder brother, Ao Sanqiong. In the next few days, the two of them only drank and did not talk much. Seeing that the formation was only a day and a half away from being broken, 2 teams of uninvited guests came outside the Jiuyin ancient people. One team was led by Ao Sanqiong, and the other team only had 2 old men, who were members of the Bright Moon Ancient clan. This was the difference between Ao Sanqiong and Han Xian. Although Ao Sanqiong was fair and righteous, in his heart, friendship was the most important thing. Longchen and Han Xian's divine thoughts detected the appearance of the 2 teams immediately. Longchen frowned, but he did not intend to remove the power of the Jiuyin ancient people's formation. Today, he had made up his mind to have a fair fight with Han Xian. Chapter 4:14. Kindred knife. Before Longchen could say anything, the 2 uninvited guests from the Bright Moon Ancient clan shouted in a deep voice, Han Xian, do you still remember the clanmaster's order? The 2 people who had come were actually 2 Runhuang elders from the Bright Moon Ancient clan. Both of them had a mocking and smug look on their faces. Buzz. As their voices fell, Han Xian frowned. His divine sense suddenly shook and an illusory soul shadow condensed from origin energy appeared outside the array. He was currently trying to break the formation and was unable to free himself. When his soul phantom saw the two of them, he immediately frowned and said in a deep voice, "I have never forgotten the Patriarch's orders. What are you two doing here?" Longchen frowned slightly, but he noticed that Han Xian's face was a little gloomy. The two elders of the Bright Moon Ancient clan stared at Han Xian and sneered, "You deserve this. 10 years ago, you crippled my son's cultivation because he raped a few girls from a branch family. Do you still remember this?" The other person also said coldly, "Do you still remember my elder brother? He also died at your hands back then." This scene caused the surrounding onlookers to reveal stunned expressions, full of surprise and bewilderment. Originally, they thought that the two people from the Bright Moon Ancient clan had come to help. However, they did not expect that the two of them would mock and ridicule Han Xian. Hearing this, Han Xian said, "I have a clear conscience in my actions. I also dare not forget the Patriarch's orders. If the two of you want to take revenge, just wait for me to settle this matter." Unfortunately, the two old men were still sneering. With a cold voice, he said, "The clan has been observing your actions these days. The clan orders you to behead Longchen today." After he finished speaking, he waved his right hand, and a wave of water slowly spread out. It was the scene inside the Bright Moon Ancient clan. There was a woman and a child who was not even 5 years old, as well as 30 people of various sizes. This scene made the surrounding Ascension stage cultivators widen their eyes and suck in a breath of cold air. These people are Han Xian's family, wives, and children. Why is the Bright Moon Ancient clan doing this? Humph. Can't you tell? I've heard of Han Xian's character from all 4 one-star ancient clans. With his character, I don't know how many people in the Bright Moon Ancient clan he has offended. Originally, with his strength, if he was in the clan, no one would dare to touch him. However, the situation is different now. In the past few days, many images of him and Longchen, who is in the formation, have been sent back to the Bright Moon Ancient clan. The clan is very suspicious of him, and many people who have a grudge with him are trying to sow discord. You can imagine. Everyone shook their heads. No one had expected that these two people from the Bright Moon Ancient clan would come here to threaten Han Xian. Ha ha ha, seeing the scene in the ripples, Han Xian's eyes widened. However, he laughed arrogantly and said, "Is this how the clan head thinks of me? When have I, Han Xian, done anything to bring shame to the clan?" However, the two of them were still laughing coldly. They sneered and said, "The two of us are only responsible for passing down the orders of the clan leader. What you do is none of our business. Today, you must kill Longchen. Otherwise, the meaning behind this person's words was self-evident." When Longchen saw this scene, he could not help but frown deeply and shake his head. At this moment, in the Bright Moon Ancient clan, it was not that the clan head did not believe Han Xian. Instead, many people wanted to take revenge before Han Xian died. As everyone had said, Han Xian's character had made too many enemies in the Bright Moon Ancient clan. To them, perhaps Longchen's life or death did not matter at all. Or perhaps, in their eyes, Han Xian had really betrayed the Bright Moon Ancient clan. Longchen did not know any of this. He only knew that Han Xian's family would not be able to survive. Han Xian looked at the ripples in the water and took a deep breath before he said, "There are layers of formations here. It is impossible to break them within a day. Only the flame origin energy can burn the formations. The formations can be broken by tomorrow midnight at the latest." However, the two of them said playfully, "The clan head has ordered that today. Longchen must be killed." Han Xian's body was already trembling, and his eyes were gradually bloodshot. How could he not know what Longchen was thinking? He was not a stupid person. It was just that he did not want to think about it. Swoosh. 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 At his command, 300 men of sacrifice rushed into the formation and bombarded the water curtain continuously. Longchen looked at Han Xian's frosty face and said, there is only one place in this formation that can be burned by the flame origin energy. It is useless in front of many people. It will take at least one more day. Long Chen's words were not sarcastic, but there was a hint of sympathy in them. With Han Xian's character, he really should not be a member of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan. The Bright Moon Ancient Clan was a large clan in the 10th heaven. Most of the people in this clan were arrogant, condescending, and ruthless. Seeing that Han Xian was ignoring him, Long Chen sighed deeply, feeling a sense of pity for a hero who had reached the end of his road. Long Chen's right hand quickly fell on the ripples in the formation, and supreme-grade spirit stones flew out from all directions. Yi Hailan, who was beside him, saw this scene and could not help but frown. He said, "What are you doing?" "He wants to kill you." Long Chen remained silent and continued to move his hands. After a while, the water curtain above the formation thinned, but even so, the formation was still not broken. Long Chen looked at the supreme-grade spirit stones flying out from all directions and said in a deep voice, "You and I were going to fight, but now the formation's operating speed has reached its peak. And because of your destruction, I can't get out at this moment, but now, the power of the formation has been reduced to the lowest level by me. Whether we can break this formation before tomorrow depends on God's will." Han Xian's face froze, and he bowed deeply to Long Chen. He knew that Long Chen was not lying. The formation here could keep him out, and it was enough to see how complicated it was. Over the past few days, he had broken through the array formations with brute force. Many places in the formation were forcibly broken by him. In order to prevent Long Chen from restoring the formation and delay time, he destroyed the formation's core. However, this time, Long Chen's actions were extremely benevolent. Just as Long Chen said, the addition of the 300 men of sacrifice did not have much effect on the last water curtain formation. The speed of breaking it did not increase by much, unless it was a purer fire origin that could increase the speed. However, Long Chen took away all the supreme-grade spirit stones that could be taken away. At this moment, no one knew whether Han Xian could break the chaotic formation before tomorrow. Seeing this, Ao Tsuncheong's face showed a hint of anger. However, Long Chen stood high and shouted at him from afar, "Big brother, today I want to have a fair fight with Han Xian. You must not interfere." "Fair fight?" Ao Tsuncheong heard these words and frowned deeply. In the end, he waved his hand and ordered all the purple stars of the Dark Star organization to withdraw at this moment. Perhaps in the hearts of Ao Tsuncheong and Han Xian, the weight of the word fair was not low. Chapter 415. Ostracism within the clan. Within the Bright Moon Ancient Clan. The clan master of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan and many elders of high status had been sitting in the hall, watching the scene that was constantly changing. Many of the old man's trusted aides standing behind him sneered. "I think Han Xian must have colluded with this person. Otherwise, why would this person order the young master of Dark Star to retreat?" an old man said coldly. Just as this person finished speaking, a cold glint flashed in the eyes of a white-bearded old man beside him. He echoed, "With Han Xian's strength, why would he need to wait so long if he wanted to kill this person? What do you mean by another day? I think that's just an excuse. The Jiuyin ancient people were only 3-star ancient clans. How strong could their protective array be? With Han Xuan's battle prowess, he would have shattered it long ago. Clan leader, you mustn't be soft-hearted. Han Xian is a member of our Bright Moon Ancient Clan, and he knows a lot about our clan. Otherwise, the other ancient clans wouldn't have tried to rope him in, that's true. A few days ago, that brat threw out so many temptations. If they were all true, how could Han Xian not agree?" All kinds of discussions filled the assembly hall of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan. Everyone seemed to want to kick Han Xian before he died. Just as Long Chen thought, in their hearts, although Long Chen deserved to be killed, he was an insignificant character. They wanted Han Xian to die a painful death. The middle-aged man sitting in the middle of the patriarch's seat kept tapping the table with the fingertips of his right hand. He frowned as if he was thinking about something, but he didn't say anything. However, when he saw Long Chen remove the formation, a cold glint appeared in his eyes. He naturally knew that Han Xian's lifespan was running out. Otherwise, he would not have sent him to kill Long Chen. The relationship between Han Xian and many of the higher-ups in the clan was tense, and he was well aware of it. Therefore, he sent him out to die outside. Exchanging a dying man for the safety of the clan's upper echelons was something he was happy to see. But now, things were not as simple as he had imagined. These higher-ups all wanted to avenge Han Xian when he was about to die. They wanted him to die a painful death. In fact, this was something he didn't want to see. But now, even he was a little shaken. Did Han Xian really betray them? Was it really going to take that long to break through the 3-star Ancient Clan's protective array in front of Long Chen? The members of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan continued to discuss and speculate about Han Xian. The clan master of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan did not say anything. Time ticked by. The sun set in the west. According to the 2 elders of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan, as long as Han Xian could not open the array to kill Long Chen before tomorrow, his family would die. Han Xian frantically bombarded the array with his power source, but the sky was about to brighten in less than 6 hours. However, the formation was still not broken. Han Xian motioned for a death warrior to replace him and bombard the formation with origin force. He himself moved and appeared outside the formation. He looked at the image on the water ripple, his eyes vaguely bloodshot. He stared at one of the elders of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan and said in a deep voice, "I remember that you broke through to the human sovereign realm with 5 kinds of fire elemental rules. That is to say, your fire elemental power source is extremely strong. If you help me, you can blast open the array before tomorrow." The elders stared at Han Xian and said, "Why should I help you? We have never been friends." The people around sighed when they heard this, but they despised the Bright Moon Ancient Clan in their hearts. Everyone present had some admiration for Han Xian's character. Otherwise, they wouldn't have come to recruit him instead of not making a move. The funny thing was that the people of his clan made things difficult for him. They even suspected that he had betrayed the clan and threatened him with the lives of his family members. The person next to him sneered and said playfully, "We are all from the same clan. Why do you have to be like this? Since he said that the array is really so difficult to break, you should help him. However, we can't help you for free. Han Xian, how about you kneel down and kowtow to us twice?" Han Xian could not help but tremble all over. Long Chen stood on the top of the Jiuyin Ancient People Mountain and observed with his divine consciousness. At this moment, he was also sighing. He had offered many benefits, but Han Xian was not moved. Now, he was being treated like this by his loyal clan. Under Long Chen's gaze, Han Xian finally knelt on the ground. He did not want to betray his clan, nor did he want to see his wife and family members die in the hands of his own clan. He stared at the rippling lines and laughed angrily. He kept shouting, "You all have underestimated me." The Bright Moon Clan master sat on the top. When he saw this scene, he could not help but show a touch of coldness on his face. He said coldly, "Send a message to the 2 of them. Quickly help Han Xian open the array. Clan master, don't be fooled by him." Moreover, the 2 of them left the clan in a hurry. "I'm afraid that they did not bring a voice-transmitting talisman with them," an old man sitting at the front said leisurely. The Bright Moon Clan master took a deep look at the elder. In the end, he could only sigh and say no more. This elder was the Bright Moon Ancient Clan's sacrificial elder. He had the right to communicate with the clan in the heavenly domain. Even the Bright Moon Clan master had to give him some leeway. This sacrificial elder actually had a grudge with Han Xian. Everyone's eyes fell on the rippling water again. The elder who gave the order could not help but laugh. In the past, he did not even dare to breathe loudly in front of Han Xian. Now that he could do so, he was in a good mood. However, he did not go back on his words. He rushed straight into the array and began to bombard the array in place of the men of sacrifice. As expected. With his power of origin, the speed at which he broke through the array formation had indeed increased. The surrounding people's eyes fell on Han Xian. They all shook their heads and sighed. There were only 2 hours before dawn. The last layer of the array outside the Jiuyin Ancient People shattered. the elder withdrew and said to Han Xian, "There are only 2 hours before dawn. You'd better kill this person quickly." Bang! 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 The origin energy around Han Xian surged like rivers and lakes. The elder was blasted 100 meters away and spat out a mouthful of blood. Han Xian stared at the rippling water and said in a deep voice, "I, Han Xian, have reached the end of my life. I will do one last thing for the clan. I only hope that you will treat my family well. They are also members of the Bright Moon Ancient clan." As his voice fell, his entire body swept out like a sword leaving a bow. A long sword flew in front of him at an extremely fast speed. As he rushed out, the origin energy frantically condensed on it. The array has been broken. Today, life and death are up to fate. Han Xian shouted to Long Chen. Good. Long Chen's fighting spirit rose. The 5 elements origin energy around him also rose and fell one after another. When the surrounding people saw that Long Chen was going to fight with Han Xian, they could not help but feel relieved for Han Xian. At the same time, they also admired Long Chen. If Long Chen had not removed part of the array, Han Xian would have needed another day to break the array. Chapter 4:16. Bitterly disappointed, Han Xian struck out with his sword, carrying a vast amount of origin power. With a single slash, the entire mountain range of the Jiuyin ancient people was reduced to dust. The surrounding onlookers all sucked in a breath of cold air. Even the 2 elders who had been targeting Han Xian earlier couldn't help but narrow their eyes. It was clear that they were somewhat fearful of Han Xian's combat strength. Chang Chen appeared on another mountain peak with a long sword in his hand. The wound on his abdomen was healing rapidly, but there were still drops of blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. Han Xian lived up to his reputation as an expert who had once stepped into the half-life realm. The source energies around him had reached perfection, and they had even fused together. He was the strongest person Long Chen had seen on his way here. Han Xian stared at Long Chen with a look of shock in his eyes. Long Chen was just a guy who had just stepped into the early stage of the Runhuang realm. How could he survive Han Xian's attack? One had to know that the gap between the 2 of them was close to an entire level. Holy technique, see beast devours the heavens. Han Xian attacked again, and there were actually a total of 10 types of water-type origins. 10 types of water-type origins instantly solidified and turned into a giant beast in the sky, pouncing toward Long Chen. If one took a closer look, they would discover that there were countless sword lights inside. It was extremely terrifying. Technique nearing Tao. This person's swordsmanship and usage of origin energy had already reached the pinnacle. Water-type rules of nature, disperse. Holy technique, Long Chen also used his full strength in the battle. Relying on the 5 perfect origin energies of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, although he was at a disadvantage, he was not defeated. Everyone around them was already trembling with fear. No one would have thought that Long Chen could actually exchange blows with Han Xian. Moreover, his usage of the power of rules was not inferior to Han Xian's. In the blink of an eye, an hour had passed, and the 2 of them had exchanged over 100 moves. The entire Jiuyin ancient people's land had long since disappeared. It had been crushed by the origin energy, and the ground had sunk 100 meters deep. But Long Chen was still not defeated. However, he was not in a good state at the moment. He was able to take on every single one of Han Xian's attacks, but the gap between their realms was too great. If it wasn't for the fact that Long Chen's body had an unprecedented recovery ability, he would have already died in Han Xian's hands. Han Xian stared at Long Chen and said, "I didn't think that there would be such a talented person in this world. All of your martial arts techniques are no weaker than mine. Especially your Runhuang physique. I have never seen such a physique before." Long Chen panted heavily as he stared at Han Xian and replied, "I call it the Dragon Emperor's indestructible body." Swoosh! As Long Chen's voice fell, streaks of divine light flashed around him. Immediately, he turned into his bloodline original body and used his innate ability on Han Xian. The powerful destructive power caused the expressions of the surrounding people to change drastically, and they all retreated. No one would have thought that Longchen still had the strength to fight back. The winds and clouds changed color, and all kinds of origin force blotted out the sky. Many saint techniques overturned the mountains and rivers, and the rivers flowed in reverse. Many people of the Bright Moon Ancient clan saw this scene through the waves and could not help but be shocked by Longchen's combat power. However, someone said coldly, "This person has just reached the Runhuang realm a few days ago. How can he have such combat power? I think Han Xian did it deliberately." In the first battle, Longchen slaughtered 1,000 Renhuangs of our clan. However, the real combat power of those people was not strong. Moreover, he had many people helping him. In the second battle, he used the power of the Golden Lion clan to suppress them. It is enough to show that although his combat power is strong, he is not comparable to Han Xian. Why are you saying so much? Han Xian's vitality has long been cut off. Even if he is alive, he will not live for more than a few days. Now, it is time for him to die for the clan. Just as everyone was discussing, the Elder of Sacrifice did not open his eyes. He said indifferently, "The sky is gradually brightening. Let's do it." As his voice fell, Han Xian, who was above the waves, froze in place. Longchen's attack instantly landed on his chest. He did not resist. This was because all his eyes fell on the waves. Longchen followed his gaze and saw that one of Han Xian's family members was directly cut in half at the waist. Seeing this scene, Longchen was extremely helpless. He also stopped his attack. Although he admired Han Xian, he would not give up resisting in order to save his family members. Moreover, he knew that even if Han Xian won, judging from the current situation, after he died, his family members would still have to die. "What are you doing? Why did you kill my family members?" Han Xian glared at them angrily. Murderous intent lingered around his body, and endless source power surged. When the two old messengers saw Han Xian like this, they could not help but feel guilty. However, when they looked at Han Xian's family members above the waves, they felt much more at ease. One of them took a step forward, summoned his courage, and shouted, "There is an order in the clan. As long as today, you will kill one person every 15 minutes until you kill Longchen." Thump! Han Xian's eyes were blood red. He could not help but shed tears of blood. His heart was unprecedentedly cold. Puff! Puff! Han Xian spat out 2 mouthfuls of essence blood. He stared at his family members above the waves, turned around, and attacked Longchen again. However, the sky gradually brightened. The two old messengers of the Bright Moon Ancient clan looked at each other, and there was a hint of fear in their eyes. This was because at that moment, Han Xian's family members were only left with his wife and child in the waves. However, they could already see that Han Xian had even used all his strength. He had even forcefully used many secret skills. He, who was originally at the end of his life, was like a madman at that moment. He could even die at any time. However, he still could not defeat Longchen. At that moment, Longchen was also extremely embarrassed. His physical body was almost in tatters from the bombardment. Staring at Han Xian, who was almost crazy, Longchen finally could not help but say, "I still have a life-saving secret skill that I have not used. With my current cultivation, I can only use 3 moves. I only have a 30% chance of killing you with this move." As soon as Longchen's voice fell, he suddenly changed the topic and said coldly, "But do you think this clan is really worth it for you to do this? Today, whether you live or die, your family members will die. And you will not be able to kill me within 15 minutes. These 3 moves of mine will be celestial techniques." Longchen's words fell into Han Xian's ears like the evening drum and morning bell. At that moment, Han Xian's entire body was surrounded by the aura of death. Origin source energy was surging like a river. His condition was much better than Longchen's. However, his eyes were filled with tears of blood, and his hair was disheveled. Longchen knew that Han Xian was not hurt by him, but was bitterly disappointed. Puff! After a brief hesitation, on the other side of the waves, his wife was already dead, and her head was separated from her body. The two messengers of the Bright Moon Ancient clan no longer had the arrogance they had just now. At that moment, their hearts were filled with fear. They never thought that things would come to this point, and that the clan's higher-ups had no intention of stopping. Chapter 417. Possessed. The clan leader of the Bright Moon Ancient clan could only turn a blind eye to Han Xian's behavior, because the elder priest beside him never opened his eyes. Every 15 minutes, he would signal his subordinates to kill one of Han Xian's family members. When he saw that Han Xian was about to attack Long Chen again, he could no longer hold it in. He asked the elder priest in a deep voice, "Han Xian is still a member of our clan. Even though he is about to die, he is still fighting against Long Chen. If he can't kill Long Chen, it won't be too late to kill him then." The elder priest slowly opened his eyes and didn't even glance at the image of the water ripples. He only said indifferently, "Whether or not I kill Long Chen, he will die. And I want him to watch his entire family die in front of him." The surrounding people were all stunned. They didn't expect that even the elder priest would hate Han Xian so much. However, there were also a few people who stared blankly at the images transmitted by the ripples, feeling uneasy. One of them couldn't help but murmur, "With this young man's battle prowess, if he doesn't die today, I'm afraid he'll become a huge threat." "That's right. I think we should let Han Xian kill Long Chen first. It won't be too late to kill his child." Many people thought that they should still carry out the original order. In their words, Han Xian had already betrayed them and was only putting on an act with Long Chen. On the other hand, the other party did not seem to have a deep enmity with Han Xian. At this moment, they had also discovered that Long Chen's battle prowess was too terrifying. They wanted to use Han Xian's child as a hostage to force him to completely kill Long Chen. Unfortunately, just as they finished speaking, the image on the water ripple underwent a tremendous change. Han Xian was lying on his back on the ground. A black light was like a black hole between his chest and abdomen, tearing apart all life within 10,000 meters of him. "Your injuries are more serious than I thought." Long Chen's draconic essence went berserk, as if he had already used a secret technique. He never thought that just as he was about to release his immortal technique, Han Xian would actually fall to the ground first. However, Long Chen couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. Immortal techniques were different from saint techniques and martial skills of any grade. Immortal techniques were true divine abilities. With his current cultivation, he could only use them 3 times. In these 3 times, he was not confident that he could kill a Runhuang who was at the peak of the Runhuang plane like Han Xian. No one would have thought that Han Xian would be defeated without a fight. The members of the various ancient clans sighed in despair. Who would have thought that Han Xian, who had been a hero all his life, would end up like this? His entire family had almost died in front of his eyes. And the instigator was the clan he had always been loyal to. Ha ha! Han Xian's smile was laced with tears of blood. His eyes stared at the image on the water ripple. The pool of blood in the image was filled with his family members, but now there was only a crying baby left. He knew better than anyone else, regardless of whether Long Chen was dead or alive, his family had already embarked on the road of no return. He had originally thought that once he died, everything would come to an end, but when the 2 old messengers arrived, he knew that there were many people in his clan who would not let him and his family off. Whoosh! With a long sword in his hand, he killed the last person in the image. The image suddenly changed, and an old man appeared on it. It was the Elder of Sacrifice. The Elder of Sacrifice stared coldly at Han Xian through the image and said in a deep voice, "Do you think that I don't know that you have repeatedly requested to abolish the position of Elder of Sacrifice? However, with your cultivation, you can't even kill an early-stage Runhuang. I really didn't expect that. It's good that you are dead. You can go to hell to accompany your family." The Elder of Sacrifice looked deeply at Long Chen through the ripples of the water ripple. Long Chen's eyes fell on Han Xian. He stared at Han Xian, who was on the verge of death, and his heart was filled with emotions. He knew that if the Bright Moon Ancient clan had not acted this way, Han Xian would not have been so disheartened, and the source space in his body would not have collapsed again. Since the battle has stopped, you and I are still friends. As long as you're willing, I can save you today. Long Chen's voice was like the sound of nature as it entered Han Xian's ears under the watchful eyes of the crowd. What? Does this person know what he is talking about? Under such circumstances, he still wants to save Han Xian? Han Xian became like this because he was trying to break through to the half-saint realm. Now that he is on the verge of death, there is no way to save him. What does this person want to do? No one present believed Long Chen's words. Even the elder of sacrifice of the Bright Moon Ancient clan shook his head mockingly through the water ripple image. On the contrary, Han Xian stared at Long Chen. In his mind, he was thinking about the miserable state of his family when they died. After 10 breaths of silence, Han Xian asked Long Chen, At this moment, I am about to die. How can you save me? Long Chen was as still as a bell. He stared at Han Xian with burning eyes and said in a deep voice, You just need to tell me, do you want to live? Han Xian stared at the elder of sacrifice's arrogant and sarcastic face, and a flame of anger burned in his heart like a prairie fire. He roared, Save me, save me. Even if I have to live for just a moment longer. If you had promised me at the beginning, I could have helped you reach the half-saint realm and completely recovered. But now, time waits for no one. There is only one last way left. Long Chen said in a deep voice. As his voice fell, a pitch-black brilliance appeared on his right arm. Layers of brilliance coiled around his right arm like a coiled snake. Today, I will use a celestial technique to help you become a demon. Celestial technique, demon transformation soaring into the sky. No one expected that Long Chen would really save Han Xian at this moment. A pitch-black light flew out from Long Chen's fingertip like a black hole and finally stopped above Han Xian's body. With the appearance of this object, countless pitch-black energy rushed toward Han Xian from all directions. Countless dark energy frantically deprived Han Xian of the power of the source in his body. His entire body seemed to be immersed in endless darkness. The dark energy was like thousands of tentacles. It was extremely terrifying. Many Renhuangs in all directions retreated and looked at this scene in horror, a celestial technique. Everyone recalled Long Chen's words just now. They originally thought that Long Chen was just bluffing to scare Han Xian. But now, he actually used a celestial technique. He used a celestial technique with the power of a Renhuang. A celestial technique was a magical technique that was above the half-saint level. This level of technique was often passed down from the Tian territory. Even in the major one-star ancient clans, it was unlikely to be found. The two messengers of the Bright Moon Ancient clan and the Elder of Sacrifice's faces turned completely gloomy. They never thought that Long Chen could really save Han Xian. Their actions were all because they thought that Han Xian would definitely die. If Han Xian was really saved at this moment, it would cause an unimaginable loss to the Bright Moon Ancient clan. Nonsense. Even the Alchemist Guild is helpless with Han Xian's injuries. So what if you can use a celestial technique? He will definitely die. Chapter 418. The swordsman clan Long Chen turned a deaf ear to everyone's words. Although the demon transformation immortal technique could mobilize the origin source demonic chi in the void, Han Xian had to stop resisting if he wanted to become a real demon. For someone like Han Xian, he had to give up all his beliefs if he wanted to become a demon. Black chi filled the sky one after another, and no one dared to move. They wanted to see if Han Xian could really survive. I want revenge. After a long time, Han Xian's hoarse voice came out of his mouth, and countless demonic chi began to pour into his body. Han Xian, who was on the verge of death, had a great change in his aura at this moment. His old face began to become younger at a speed visible to the naked eye. His mottled white hair also turned black. Long Chen stared at Han Xian, and a dignified look flashed in his eyes. Han Xian had become a demon. As Han Xian became a demon, the black hole-like collapsed space above his dantian was forcibly filled up. At this moment, Han Xian had stepped into the Sage-to-be realm. Whoosh! Whoosh! Han Xian's mouth flashed with an unprecedented ruthlessness, and the smile on his face was frightening. His figure instantly turned into a beam of black light and disappeared from where he stood. When he reappeared, the bodies of the two old messengers of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan had been completely blown to pieces, and their divine souls had been swallowed by Han Xian. Bang! The expression of the elder priest in the water wave image finally changed when he saw this scene. Han Xian had really come back to life, and his cultivation had advanced a step further, reaching the Sage-to-Be realm. Unfortunately, the next moment, the water wave was forcibly shattered by Han Xian. At this moment, the origin source strength around Han Xian had all turned into extremely solid origin source demonic chi, which was the most obvious characteristic of a demonic cultivator. This origin source demonic chi allowed his cultivation to reach the Sage-to-Be realm directly, but it also changed his temperament greatly. When the people around saw Han Xian's change, they all retreated. Some of them wanted to recruit Han Xian again, but they were directly killed. After some hesitation, everyone left one after another, not daring to stay here any longer. Han Xian slowly walked to Long Chen, but finally took a deep breath and bowed down. Han Xian didn't say much. After a while, he handed the soul of Qing Xian to Long Chen. After that, his entire body was shrouded in demonic energy as he charged into the sky. Now that he had reached the half-step saint realm, he could fly in the air within the wasteland. Seeing this, Ao Tsungqiang dismissed Dark Star and walked to Long Chen's side. Yi Hailan looked at Han Xian's departing figure and said in a low voice, "I'm afraid he won't be able to return this time." Long Chen looked at the Qing Xian's soul in his hand and sighed while shaking his head. At this time, the Jiuyin ancient people had already turned into ruins. There was no point in staying here. Under Ao Tsungqiang's lead, Long Chen and Yi Hailan set off for the Swordsman clan. However, Long Chen did not intend to borrow the strength of the sword-serving clan to resist the Bright Moon Ancient Clan. Instead, the sword-serving clan and the Bright Moon Ancient Clan were both one-star overlords. Moreover, the sword-serving clan was not far from the Alchemist Guild headquarters. Everyone found a flying demonic beast and set off for the sword-serving clan under the lead of Ao Tsungqiang. Long Chen, who was sitting on the back of the demonic beast, did not stop cultivating for even a moment. After the battle with Han Xian, he realized that his current cultivation was still too weak. Even if he could fight someone who was at a higher level, it was still far from enough to truly protect himself. Moreover, the people behind the Bright Moon Ancient Clan were the people of the Tianyu domain. More than 10 days flew by. During this time, Long Chen constantly inquired about the Bright Moon Ancient Clan using the information he received from Dark Star. After Han Xian returned to the Bright Moon Ancient Clan, he went on a killing spree. He slaughtered at least thousands of human sovereigns in the Half-Life realm. Moreover, he even spread many of the secrets of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan, which made all the major ancient clans very happy. The last news was that Han Xian escaped with his life and that the priest elder lost an arm. Long Chen did not see this battle, but he could imagine how tragic it was. Han Xian fought against the Bright Moon Ancient Clan by himself and was still alive. It was really incredible. However, on second thought, he was relieved. The strength of a demonic cultivator was far superior to those of the same level. In addition, with Han Xian's understanding of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan, it was not impossible for him to escape unscathed. On the other side, even though they were using flying demonic beasts. Now, everyone had just arrived outside the Worshipper clan. "Who are you?" As soon as Long Chen, Ao Tsungqiang, and the others approached, they were stopped by several human sovereigns. Before the three of them could answer, they saw Jian Shan walking over from afar and welcoming the two of them in. Seeing the respectful gazes of the people around them toward Jian Shan, Long Chen and the others were taken aback. They did not expect Jian Shan to have such influence here. Under the lead of Jian Shan, everyone came to the main hall of the Worshipper clan. At this moment, the main hall was already full of people. Everyone was sitting like a pine tree, as if there was a sharp sword in front of them. Seeing Long Chen walk in, everyone's eyes fell on him immediately. It's not an exaggeration to say that he's talented. After a long while, a beardless old man with sword-like eyebrows sitting in the middle of the clan leader's seat said in a deep voice. Longchen stared at this person and replied, "You flatter me." He had some contact with the clan leader of the worshipper clan, Jian Fantian, in his previous life. In fact, Longchen had a good impression of the worshipper clan. The people of this clan were obsessed with the sword and loved it very much. However, the actual surname of the worshipper clan was Yi, but the people of this clan preferred to use Jian as their surname. Jian Shirsan once said that at least 70% of his swordsmanship cultivation came from your teachings. Is this true? Jian Fantian asked Longchen with fiery eyes. Many of the elders of the worshipper clan also looked at him excitedly. Longchen smiled and nodded slightly. In his mind, he was planning how to enter the sword pool of the worshipper clan. The sword altar was not a forbidden area of the worshipper clan, but a place of worship for the worshipper clan. Although the worshipper clan did not have bloodline power, it was the foundation of the waste domain. In his previous life, Longchen did not have any interaction with the worshipper clan, but he knew this place very well. In the Battle of Infinite Wasteland in his previous life, the worshipper clan had used the sword pool to kill many sky domain experts. Although Longchen did not know what kind of secret was in the sword pool, it was certainly extraordinary. If he could obtain some good fortune, he would have more confidence when he entered the forbidden area of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan. The origin of the Battle of Infinite Wasteland was the passage in the forbidden area of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan that connected to the sky domain. If he wanted to destroy the Bright Moon Ancient Clan, he had to go to the passage and enter the forbidden area of the Bright Moon Ancient Clan. This was also the agreement between him and Luo Yan of the Golden Lion Clan. Thinking of this, Longchen could not help but sigh. The tragic appearance of the ancient clans in the Battle of Infinite Wasteland was still fresh in his memory. He had to reach the Saint Realm before the Battle of Infinite Wasteland. Otherwise, his strength was far from enough to face the experts of the sky domain. Chapter 419. Sword Pool. Many elders of the swordsman clan stared at Longchen. They did not doubt Longchen's strength. In the past few days, the battle between Longchen and Han Xian had already spread to all the major ancient clans, and his name had long been noticed by all the major ancient clans. For a person from the northern region who was comparable to a great path disciple to be able to last so long against Han Xian with his Runhuang cultivation, this was simply a fantasy. What's more, some of the changes in Han Xian were caused by Longchen. After a long while, someone finally couldn't bear it any longer and stepped forward to spar with Longchen. The sword-worshipping clan could be said to be obsessed with the path of the sword. Longchen stood in the main hall, sparring with the crowd. This discussion actually lasted for 3 days. Within 3 days, the faces of all the elders in the main hall were flushed red. They were all amazed by Longchen. There were even a few elders who directly sat cross-legged on the ground because of Longchen's guidance. They actually had the intention of making a breakthrough in their swordsmanship. The suspicion that he had because of Longchen's age also disappeared. Just as everyone was getting excited, Longchen finally took the initiative to speak. He said, "I'm quite interested in the sword pool of the sword-bestowing clan. I wonder if I can take a look." Originally, Longchen had already thought of many excuses to exchange for entering the sword pool, but a scene that stunned him appeared. The patriarch of the sword worship clan was slightly surprised, but he immediately agreed to Longchen's request. The swordsman clan's magnanimity made Longchen admire them even more. "Sir, you have such attainments in the sword Dao. Entering the sword pool could be said to be the honor of my clan. If you can solve the mystery of the sword pool, it would be an extremely great fortune for my sword-worshipping clan." The patriarch of the Fengjian clan walked out of the main hall and signaled for Longchen to follow him. Longchen nodded. Sword Pool, Alchemist Guild Headquarters, Bright Moon Ancient Clan's Forbidden Area, Golden Lion Clan. These places had to be visited once every Longchen. If he could gain something from the Sword Pond, then he could save a lot of time in the Alchemist Guild headquarters. Longchen and Jian Shirsan arrived at the center of the Worshipping Sword Clan under the lead of the Worshipping Sword Clan's patriarch. In the center of the huge square in front of them was an extremely deep cave. Outside the cave was a square that spanned tens of thousands of meters. Many disciples of the sword worship clan were cultivating on the square. Long Chen's eyes couldn't help but focus when he saw this scene. Under his powerful divine perception, he clearly noticed that the entire square was coiled with strands of pure sword Dao quintessence, and there were even countless strands of heptagolden tent. This is the foundation of the worshipping sword clan. Below this place is the sword pond. The patriarch of the worshipping sword clan explained to Long Chen and the others. Jian San, Yi Hailan, and the others revealed curious gazes. The worshipping sword clan, one of the 4 overlords of the waste region, was based on such a simple cave? Long Chen naturally saw through their thoughts and shook his head slightly with a smile. This place is not as simple as what you see with your eyes. There are 720 celestial killing arrays above, and 360 earth fiend sealing arrays below. Everyone's expression changed when they heard Long Chen's words. Many elders of the worshipping sword clan became more and more curious about the dragon carriage. One of them clicked his tongue in wonder and said, "Rumor has it that you, a young man from the north of the northern region, are not only as strong as the heaven-defying Daozi, but also proficient in alchemy and formations." Now that I've seen it, it's true, Long Chen smiled slightly and was not modest. However, this place was not as simple as he said. Not only were there formations that could shake a Saint Realm expert, but there were at least 4 saints in all directions. This made Long Chen respect the worshipping sword clan even more. This lineup was enough to show how much importance they attached to the sword pool. However, they directly opened it to Long Chen and the others, which showed how much trust they had. Long Chen did not hesitate and gradually approached the sword pool. Jian San, Yi Hailan, Qing Xian, and the 3 war souls were all surprised and looked at the sword pool in the distance. Seeing this, the patriarch of the worshipping sword clan shook his head and laughed. "If you want to take a look, you can follow." "It's okay." Jian San heard this and disappeared on the spot like a sword that had left the bow. He went toward the sword pool. Yi Hailan and the others followed closely behind. Seeing that everyone had walked to the edge of the sword pool, several elders of the worshipping sword clan looked uneasily at the patriarch of the worshipping sword clan, Jian Fantian, and said, "Is it really okay to let them enter the sword pool like this?" Jian Fantian directly waved his hand and motioned for him to stop talking. He stared at Long Chen and Jian San and finally glanced at the others and replied, "We are worshipping swords, not holding them. Each of them is extremely talented. Among them, Jian San and his disciple are the only sword Dao geniuses I have seen in my life. If there is an opportunity here, it is the will of heaven." Everyone nodded slightly and said no more. Long Chen, Jian San and the others entered the deep cave under the eyes of everyone in the square. A chill instantly wrapped around each of them. Long Chen couldn't help but shudder at this chill. Bang bang, when everyone landed, they had already arrived at a long and narrow tunnel. There were medium-sized caves on both sides of the tunnel. Although the caves were small, they could still accommodate several people sitting cross-legged. As they walked along the tunnel, the chill became heavier and heavier. Gradually, many youths of the worshipping sword clan appeared in the caves on both sides of the tunnel and sat cross-legged. Jian San's eyes shone brightly and his voice was even a little excited. He said seriously, "This chill is the sharpness of the sword. The aura of confusion here is the purest source of sword Dao." Looking at the disciples of the worshipping sword clan in the caves one after another, Jian San could not help but step into one of the caves and sit cross-legged. Yi Hailan and Qing Xian also seemed to feel something and stepped into the cave. On the contrary, the 3 mythological beast war souls and Ao Tsungqiong did not take a second look. It seemed that they were not interested in this place. Under the leadership of Long Chen, the 4 of them continued to walk deeper into the tunnel. Gradually, there were fewer people in the caves on both sides of the tunnel. They did not know how deep the tunnel was. Seeing that they were about to reach the end, they saw several young men in their 30s. The aura of these men was calm and steady, and their sword essence was overflowing. They opened their eyes the moment they sensed Long Chen and the others. "Who are you? How can you enter my sword pool?" a cold-looking man shouted in a deep voice. Ascension made a record and replied, "We came here with your clan to have a look." However, the moment Ascension finished speaking, the man snorted coldly and said, "Just take a look and go back. This is not a place for outsiders like you to stay." Long Chen frowned slightly. Before he could speak, a beautiful woman beside him said softly, "Jian Chen, why do you have to do this? Since they can come here, they are our honorable guests. Everyone, please do as you please." The Taotai War Soul and the Yazi War Soul snorted coldly and continued to walk forward behind Long Chen. After a long time, they reached the end of the tunnel. This place was a water gate. Behind the water gate was a blue lake. The lake water was so clear that they could even see the fish swimming in it. Chapter 420. To provoke and deceive Long Chen, Ascension, and the others all had strange expressions on their faces as they looked at the rippling water gate. Tao Tai gnawed on an oar that he had dug out from somewhere with one hand, while his other hand slowly touched the water gate. Buzz. The moment he got close to the water door, ripples appeared and blasted him away, slamming him into the wall. The crowd ignored the Tao Tai fighting soul as they were all attracted by the ripples on the water gate. As the ripples spread out, streaks of silver-white light appeared above the water gate out of thin air. The radiance dispersed. 3 large silver words were left at the top of the water gate. "What is a sword?" The silver light flashed, and the 3 words disappeared without a trace. The Yazi fighting soul seemed to find it interesting as well. It walked in and pushed the water door open. Bang! The same scene appeared once again. The Yazi fighting soul was also sent flying. However, it landed on the Tao Tai fighting soul, which had yet to stand up. Immediately, it caused a wave of curses. "What is a sword?" Just like before, there were only 3 words. However, these 3 words stood there all by themselves. No one knew what they meant. Long Chen stared at the water gate thoughtfully. A moment later, a sword light shot out from his right hand. Although the sword light did not enter the water gate, 3 lonely words still appeared on the water gate. "What is a sword?" Ascension and the others completely lost interest after studying it for a while. They turned around and found a cave on either side of the nearest tunnel to sit down cross-legged. Long Chen stared blankly at the water gate. Even his divine consciousness could not penetrate this place. It was as if there were countless murderous intents in front of him that could even shatter his divine consciousness. However, Long Chen was not surprised. The entire worshipping sword clan had not even opened this place, but just the aura that leaked out from this place was enough to prove just how terrifying this place was. Long Chen sat cross-legged in front of the water gate and began to meditate. From time to time, he would bombard it with a beam of sword intent or origin energy. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. Apart from Jian San and Yi Hailan, the rest of the people had already lost interest and left the place. The sword Dao origin and aged metal will here were extremely solid, but to the 3 divine beast battle souls, it was not very tempting. After all, they were not obsessed with the sword, and their attainments in the way of the sword were not high. They were just here to watch the show. Ascension, on the other hand, wanted to avoid arousing suspicion. After all, he was the young master of Dark Star. However, after 3 days, Long Chen didn't find anything. The water gate seemed to lead to the pool, but he couldn't get close to it. From his point of view, this place was like a cave under a lake. But what was above the pool, and what was hidden in the pool, he had no idea. In the end, Jian San and Yi Hailan also came to Long Chen's side. When they saw the water gate, they also tried to probe it, but in the end, they returned empty-handed. The mystery of the sword pool has been studied by my clan for generations, but we have no clue. You don't have to worry too much about it. A woman's voice was heard. Long Chen and Yi Hailan recognized the woman's voice even before they turned around. It was the person who had helped them scold the man when they entered. The woman was dressed in a purple dress and light muslin. Her face was delicate and her actions were generous. In terms of beauty, she was naturally not as beautiful as Yi-Lan, but she made people feel quite close to her. Who would have thought that in the entire sword-bearing clan, the mystery of the sword pool was only 3 words? But it was these 3 words that had stumped the sword-bearing clan for so long. I was wondering how extraordinary they were. They still have no clue. If there's nothing else, hurry up and leave this place. Before Long Chen and the others could answer, Jian Chen's voice was heard. Then, the cold-looking man followed behind the woman and walked over slowly. There was a hint of provocation at the corner of his mouth. Especially when his gaze fell on Jian Shan, there was a bit more fighting spirit and even hostility. When Jian Shan heard this person's words, he directly snorted coldly and stood out. He said in a cold voice, "If Jian Chen wants to speak rudely again, then you and I can go to the square to determine the victor." Jian Chen sneered again and again. He seemed to be doing this deliberately. Instead of backing down, he agreed and said in a deep voice, "It was an accident that I lost to you 7 days ago. It is said that this boy is your master. Today is the right day. I will defeat you in front of him here. Then I will defeat him." Jian Chen's voice was full of provocation. It seemed that he was still brooding over his defeat to Jian Shan. The delicate woman frowned slightly and said to the man in a deep voice, "Jian Chen, haven't you caused enough trouble? After all, they are guests of the sword-bearing clan." Jian Chen acted as if he didn't hear it. He shouted to Jian Shan, "What, are you afraid?" Jian Shan looked at him coldly and replied, "Let's fight. Let's go." Jian Shan said and was about to return to the square with Jian Chen. However, Jian Chen suddenly attacked with his sword and forced Jian Shan to step back. He sneered and said, "Let's fight here. Neither you nor I will use the power of origin." As soon as he finished speaking, before Sword 13 could reply, he had actually slashed out a few tens of times in succession. Jian Shan reached out with his right hand and grabbed the broken sword on his back. He went up to meet the attack, bang. 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 However, after 3 moves, Jian Shan hit the wall heavily and spat out a mouthful of blood. Long Chen's eyes suddenly turned cold and he stared at Jian Chen coldly. With Jian Shan's cultivation in sword principle, even if it was a competition of sword moves, it was impossible for him to be defeated in 3 moves. Clap, clap. Just as Long Chen was puzzled, the broken sword in Jian Shan's hand completely shattered and turned into iron scraps all over the ground. Jian Shan was defeated so quickly. Yi-Lan next to him was also full of doubts. Even the delicate woman from the swordsmanship clan was stunned. On the contrary, Jian Chen looked complacent and sneered loudly, "Weren't you very arrogant a few days ago? How could you be defeated so miserably today? Master? It's ridiculous that such a guy is your master. I'd like to see how many moves your master can take from me." As soon as Jian Chen's voice fell, the long sword in his hand suddenly attacked Long Chen. Long Chen snorted coldly. He didn't even take out his long sword. A sword light flew out of his hand and fell on Jian Chen. However, a strange scene appeared. The sword light actually dissipated into nothingness when it approached Jian Chen, as if it had been shattered in half. Jian Chen sneered and raised his sword to attack Long Chen. Long Chen frowned deeply. This person was indeed cheating. Seeing Jian Chen's attack, Long Chen's figure suddenly disappeared. He waved his right hand and the long sword in his hand attacked Jian Chen's back. Buzz. At this moment, a strange scene appeared again. Long Chen's long sword actually deviated by an inch and was full of flaws in an instant. Chapter 421. The sword pool was strange. Jian Chen attacked with his long sword. Although his swordsmanship was exquisite, it was absolutely incomparable to Jian Shan's, let alone Long Chen. Long Chen moved his feet according to his will and dodged easily. 10 moves had already been exchanged back and forth between them. Long Chen's mouth slowly revealed a sneer. he saw the problem with Jian Chen's body. It turned out to be his jade pendant. The jade pendant looked extremely ordinary and did not have any sense of spiritual power, so Long Chen did not find it strange at first. But as the two fought, a faint ripple spread out from the jade pendant. The ripple intersected and changed the trajectory of Long Chen's long sword out of thin air. This time, Long Chen did not use any sword moves. Dragon catching hand. His feet moved like a light rainbow and his hands grabbed the jade pendant at Jian Chen's waist. Seeing this, Jian Chen's face suddenly changed and he shouted in a deep voice, "Give the jade pendant back to me." Bang! However, without the jade pendant, he was blown away by Long Chen's sword. Jian Chen's face was filled with shock. When he had the jade pendant, Jian Shan could not get close to him, but he still felt powerless in front of Long Chen. Without the jade pendant, he could not even take one move. Third Elder's sword restraining jade pendant? Jian Chen, you really disgraced our clan. The woman on the side stared at the jade pendant in Long Chen's hand with a cold face. Long Chen looked at the sword restraining jade pendant in his hand and felt a little more curious. The sword-bearing clan was worthy of being a clan that majored in swordsmanship. They actually had such a strange thing. If used properly, it would be really effective against enemies who used swordsmanship. Jian Chen's face was livid. In the end, he glared at Long Chen and turned to leave. The other woman from the sword-bearing clan took a deep look at Long Chen and also turned to leave. Jian Shan and the others also seemed to be very surprised by the so-called sword restraining jade pendant in Long Chen's hand. They walked over to take a look. At this moment, a sword spirit appeared on the longsword in Long Chen's hand. It swallowed the jade pendant in front of everyone and disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. What is this? Everyone was slightly shocked. This was the first time they had seen Chang Chen's sword with a sword spirit. Long Chen explained. Then, he waved his right hand, and grasped the sword spirit in his hand. That day, when he subdued this sword spirit in the Divine Mountain Sword Mountain, it was still vivid in his mind. What? I've already eaten it and can't spit it out. I'm helping you nurture this sword. The sword spirit looked at Long Chen's gaze and couldn't help but feel apprehensive. Obviously, he was somewhat afraid of Long Chen from the bottom of his heart. Although he had his own thoughts, at this moment, he had become a sword spirit and was under Long Chen's control. Long Chen stared at the sword spirit, but his eyes fell on the water gate. He said, "As a sword spirit, you have many thoughts in the Sword Mountain. Do you know the answer to what is the sword above the water gate?" Everyone's eyes instantly fell on the sword spirit. Seeing that Long Chen didn't ask about the jade pendant, the sword spirit couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. He looked at the water gate in front of Long Chen. "What is the sword?" The sword spirit paused and said, "I am the sword. I am the sword." Everyone's expression suddenly froze. Even Long Chen's pupils suddenly shrank. A spiritual light flashed in his right hand and blasted the sword spirit to the water gate. At this moment, a strange thing happened. The water gate, which no one could move, was actually rippling without a trace. The sword spirit appeared in the sword pool out of thin air. Sword spirit, only the sword spirit could enter this place. Long Chen suddenly realized that the three words, "What is the sword?" were the questions, and also the requirements to enter this place. Xiao. Long Chen waved his right hand and the sword spirit involuntarily flew back with a blank face. It seemed that even the sword spirit didn't know why. Long Chen sat down cross-legged in motion for Jian Shan and the others to leave first. He separated a part of his spirit and lodged it in the sword spirit. The sword spirit flew towards the water gate again. This time, it was the same. It directly entered the pool without any resistance. However, Long Chen's spirit was forcibly expelled. Only the power of his spirit remained in the sword spirit. Long Chen sighed. This place was really strange. It could even block the spirit. It seemed that only the sword spirit could enter this place. The ripples were like the tide. The water in the pool was no different from ordinary water. It was extremely normal. Looking back, the water gate was like the entrance to a cave on the mountain wall. Long Chen's spirit was attached to the sword spirit, but he was very puzzled. Where did this place lead to? The sword worship clan was located in the wasteland. The entrance to the sword pool was within the sword worship clan, but where was this pool located? The wasteland. Or perhaps it was the heaven domain, or perhaps it was some unknown space. He secretly thought that after returning from this life, he was a little more respectful of the wasteland. The eternal origin mountain in the crack of the forbidden area's passage. The underground palace below also contained an aura that made Long Chen's heart palpitate. It was filled with some kind of mystery. Within the pool, the sword spirit's body wasn't a physical object, so it naturally moved freely. It rushed towards the surface of the pool. Rays of spiritual light were like the tide, rippling past. Seeing that they were about to reach the surface of the lake, Long Chen and the sword spirit were forcibly blocked. It was as if the surface of the lake was an invisible barrier. Looking out through the surface of the lake, a divine light suddenly appeared. Every single one of the giant trees was tens of thousands of feet tall. Long Chen couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. Seeing that it was impossible to break through the barrier, Long Chen's gaze looked towards the boundless pool. The pool stretched as far as the eye could see. Beyond 1,000 meters was the deep and serene land. Long Chen turned around and was about to walk into the distance. At this moment, the sword spirit's voice was a little excited. Go to the left. Why? Long Chen frowned and asked in a deep voice. The sword spirit replied, your spirit hasn't come in yet, so naturally you can't investigate this place. There won't be a problem if you follow me. The entire pool is filled with the sword Dao origin and heptametal intent. The source is on the left. Long Chen felt that the sword spirit's words were somewhat reasonable. Moreover, although his spirit was here at this moment, it was only a part of it. He wasn't afraid of the sword spirit playing tricks. The sword spirit charged straight towards the pool on the left. The pool was originally as clear as a mirror, but the closer it got to the left, the more turbid the water became. Even the fishes and other creatures had disappeared. Long Chen couldn't help but be a little more vigilant in his heart. However, the sword spirit's illusory face was full of excitement. After more than half an hour, Long Chen and the sword spirit's speed gradually slowed down. This was because at this moment, their surroundings were pitch black. If it weren't for the waves that still swept past from time to time, they wouldn't even know if they were still in the pool. However, at this moment, about 10,000 meters to their left, there was a human-shaped divine light flickering continuously. Things had come to this point. Chapter 422. Autumn rain. Just as the sword spirit had said, this place was the origin of the sword principle and the golden age will. Long Chen was shocked. Who would have thought that the origin of the sword worship clan in the waste region because of the sword pool was a skeleton and a giant purple gold sword? Long Chen was standing 100 meters away from the divine light. The sword spirit was unwilling to step forward. This skeleton was different from an ordinary person's. It was actually 4 meters tall, and its entire body emitted a divine light. His right hand held a purple gold greatsword, which was covered in cracks like a spiderweb. It looked as if it would turn into iron powder if it moved. However, it was this sword that emitted an aura that filled the entire pool with the origin of the way of the sword. The will of gunmetal also came from this sword. Simply put, this sword was the foundation of the sword pool. It was also this sword that created a one-star ancient clan in the waste region. This sword. What is its grade? Long Chen was only a thought, relying on the sword spirit to come here, but now he felt his mouth and lips dry. This terrifying sword was definitely not something from this era. It could only be an item from the primordial age, or even the ancient age. In his previous life, he was the ruler of the dragon region. In order to find a way to reverse reincarnation, he had never heard of such a terrifying sword in the 10 directions sky domain. We should leave quickly. This place makes my soul tremble. The sword spirit was trembling, and there was even a hint of collapse. Buzz. At this moment, a woman's divine soul appeared on the giant purple gold sword. However, this woman was completely naked. She was 3 meters tall, and there were 6 pairs of wings on the back of her divine soul. Her eyes suddenly opened. Long Chen and the sword spirit felt their bodies tremble, and the water around them seemed to stop. Long Chen could even feel the sword spirit's fear. He wanted to retreat, but he could not move at all. Long Chen smiled bitterly. He thought to himself that he might have to pay with his sword spirit this time. Sword spirit, in human thoughts, you are not qualified. The woman who appeared from the purple gold sword said coldly. Bang! 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 Waves of water turned into golden edgewell and attacked Long Chen. At the same time, countless sword principle will rolled in from all directions, trying to tear Long Chen and the sword spirit apart. Seeing this, the sword spirit screamed, "Why did I come here?" However, 10 breaths later, Long Chen's divine soul still existed. The will of Genjin and the origin of sword Dao that filled the sky actually stopped an inch in front of them. Through the power of origin, Long Chen could vaguely see another soul phantom appear beside the woman. However, this illusory figure was extremely weak. Only a head was left, and even this head was extremely illusory, as if it would disappear at any moment. However, it was this head that made Long Chen feel a bone-chilling coldness. The sense of danger that came from it far surpassed that of the woman beside it. What was? Who were these two? Did they come from the space above the pool? Long Chen's heart was filled with questions. Although this man only had one head, Long Chen could still see the disdainful aura in his eyes. Sword spirit and human? There is a sword spirit here, but it is a human, the man said calmly. Chiu Yu, leave with them. The man said. He waved his hand and the purple gold sword turned into powder. The woman's sword spirit actually fell towards Long Chen just like that. It wrapped around the sword spirit that Long Chen was attached to. No, I want to stay here with you. The woman on the sword spirit cried out in a shrill voice. However, the man's head did not react at all. It only said indifferently, "It's a pity that I have left behind so many inheritances, but in the end, I still have to sleep here. My soul is about to dissipate, so why do you still stay here? Leave with him and help me find my successor. Bring him here." Swoosh. As soon as the man finished speaking, he disappeared. Then, Long Chen and the sword spirit felt as if they were hit by a huge water current. They felt dizzy and rushed back. Puff. When Long Chen recovered, he was back in the sword pool passageway. In front of him was the water gate that led to the sword pool. The sword spirit in front of him had disappeared. Long Chen moved his right hand and held the sword in his hand. Then, he immersed his divine thought into it. But he could not feel the presence of the sword spirit. Just as Long Chen was puzzled, he realized that he could not pull the sword out. Bang, bang, bang. Long Chen moved his right hand and hit the water gate again. Ripples flashed and 3 words appeared. What is a sword? Long Chen frowned. With his strong divine thought, he knew that this was not an illusion. Long Chen bowed slightly to the water gate, then got up and left. As soon as he came out of the passageway, Jianshi-san and the others were waiting there. The Tao Tai fighting soul was the most curious. It came up to Long Chen and asked if he wanted to enter the sword pool. Jianshi-san did not tell them. Long Chen thought of the strange things in the sword pool and shook his head. You and your subordinates stay in the sword-serving clan to recuperate. The 3 of you and Big Brother will accompany me to the Alchemist Guild headquarters in a few days. Long Chen did not want to talk about the sword pool and ordered everyone. The 3 mythical beast fighting souls bowed and accepted the order. Ao Tsungcheong and Jianshi-san did not refuse to go with Long Chen to the Alchemist Guild headquarters. On the contrary, Yi Hailan and Qing Xian frowned. Long Chen was absent-minded because of the sword pool. After telling everyone to prepare to leave, he returned to his room. After studying the long sword in his hand for a while, he still had no clue. The trip to the sword pool did not seem to improve his cultivation at all. Instead, it made him unable to use the long sword in his hand. In this way, the trip to the Alchemist Guild headquarters was imperative. On the one hand, he had promised Louis that he would visit her. On the other hand, he continued to refine elixirs to improve his cultivation. As his strength increased, he needed elixirs if he wanted to improve his cultivation at the early stage of the human emperor realm. However, just as Longchen was immersed in studying the spirit herbs he was looking for and what kind of pills he was going to refine, there was a knock on the door. "Sir, can you come out for a chat? Can you return my disciple's sword-suppressing jade pendant?" An old man's voice came from outside the door. Longchen frowned slightly. The sword-suppressing jade pendant had been swallowed by the sword spirit. He could not get it at all. He pushed the door open and saw an elder of the sword-serving clan standing outside with a smile. Chapter 423. One who receives. The worshipping sword clan was still calm. Everyone subconsciously thought that Longchen had not entered the sword pond. In fact, this was indeed the case. Only the sword spirit could enter the sword pond, but there was no second sword spirit in the entire desolate domain. Unfortunately, the sword in Longchen's hand couldn't be pulled out at all. As for the sword spirit, it seemed to have disappeared. At this time, the third elder of the worshipping sword clan came to ask for the sword-restraining jade pendant, which made Longchen feel a little confused. The third elder looked at Longchen and said in a deep voice, "The sword-restraining jade pendant is a rare item of the worshipping sword clan. Your Excellency, please return it." Longchen shook his head slightly and replied, "Third elder, you misunderstand. It's not that I don't intend to return the sword-restraining jade pendant, but it has been destroyed." The worshipping sword clan was polite to them and even let them stay in the worshipping sword clan despite the prestige of the Bright Moon Ancient clan. Although Jianchen was in the wrong first, Longchen did not take it to heart. A look of disdain flashed across the third elder's eyes. He stared at Longchen and said, "If your Excellency likes it, just take it. Why make such a lousy excuse?" The third elder shouted coldly with a look of disdain on his face, then turned and left. At this moment, Sword 13 was walking over from afar, and when he saw the third elder's departing figure, he immediately grunted coldly and said, "At that time, when I was brought back here by the Sword Worship clan, he made things difficult for me at every turn and even made Jianchen fight me. Unfortunately, Jianchen lost miserably at my hands. The sword-restraining jade pendant must have been given to Jianchen by him to take revenge on me. Now, he has the nerve to use it to bury Master." Jianshi-san was very angry, but Longchen did not care. He waved his hand and said, "The patriarch of the worshipping sword clan has been kind to you. Moreover, I can see that the patriarch of the worshipping sword clan admires you very much. You should stay in the clan for a while to avoid any more mishaps," Longchen said to Jianshi-san. Jianshi-san nodded. In fact, he had thought of this as well. On the other hand, he also felt his cultivation loosening after entering the sword pool. Therefore, he specially came to Longchen, wanting to stay with the sword-bearing clan. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. Longchen repeatedly instructed the 3 divine beast battle souls in Jianshi-san not to have any conflicts with the Fengjian clan. Then, he took Yi Hailan and Qing Xian, accompanied by Ao Tsunqiong, and set off for the Alchemist Association headquarters. "Everyone, please wait." Just as the few of them were about to set off, they were stopped by several elders of the sword-bearing clan. The person in the lead was Jianchen's master, the third elder of the sword worship clan. The third elder said in a deep voice, "Our clan has always been on good terms with the Alchemist Association. This time, this old man just happened to bring these young disciples to see the world. Would you like to travel together?" Longchen frowned suddenly. The third elder was angry with them because of Jianchen's matter, but this time, he took the initiative to ask to travel together. He was afraid that the journey would not be peaceful. However, at this moment, Longchen could not refuse, so he nodded and agreed. Everyone rode on the flying demonic beasts of the sword-bearing clan and headed straight for the Alchemist Association, after more than 10 days, a huge white jade ivory tower appeared in front of everyone's eyes, tens of thousands of meters away. The white jade ivory tower had layers upon layers, and there were a total of 81 floors. Behind the tower, there were a few rounds of ethereal fire burning in the sky, which was inexplicably magnificent. Around the white jade ivory tower, there were 9 mountains. On each mountain, there were huge cauldron carvings, and each one was different. It was very spectacular. Yi Hailan and Qing Xian were here for the first time, and they were a little dazed by the scenery. They stood on the left and right of Longchen, which attracted many of the sword-bearing clan's disciples behind the third elder, who looked envious, especially when they looked at Yi Hailan. Their eyes were filled with amazement. While everyone was sighing, they approached the 9 huge cauldron mountains. The demonic beasts under everyone's feet suddenly whimpered and fell, not daring to move an inch further. The third elder of the sword-bearing clan seemed to be used to such a scene, and he directly led everyone to walk towards the white jade ivory tower. From time to time, he would turn back to stare at Longchen, and a playful smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Longchen acted as if he did not see any of this, and he casually walked on the main road with the few people. Not long after, on one of the huge cauldron mountains, several people with the Alchemist Association badge on their chests rode on long-necked, 4-winged flying demonic beasts. These demonic beasts were thin and long, but they were covered in scales, and they emitted a cold aura all over, obviously of high rank. Longchen's divine thought clearly sensed that there were countless of such demonic beasts in these 9 huge mountains. This was also the reason why the sword-bearing clan's flying demonic beasts did not dare to set foot on this place. He walked to the front of the few people, bowed, and said, "The president already knows that you are coming, and he asked me to specially come and welcome you to the ivory tower for a chat. Everyone, please." The third elder of the sword-bearing clan, who was leading the group, was startled, but he immediately showed an arrogant expression and replied, "The president is too polite, and he actually asked everyone to personally come and welcome us. I really don't dare to accept this." As he spoke, he stepped onto the demonic beasts under the Alchemist Association's feet. Longchen and the others naturally followed closely behind. However, just as they were about to step onto the demonic beast's back, the third elder berated them, "I have something to discuss with the president, you'd better walk over by yourselves." Jian Chen's eyes immediately revealed a playful look. Walking from this place to the ivory tower did not seem far, but in fact, it would take some time. Ao Tsungqiang frowned and was about to step forward, but he was stopped by Longchen, who said, "This place is not far from the ivory tower, we can just walk over." Ao Tsungqiang coldly snorted, too lazy to argue with this person. When the Alchemist Association's receptionists saw this scene, they were obviously a little impatient and said, "The president is waiting for you, we can't stay here any longer." After speaking, the two of them led the third elder, Jian Chen, and the others to fly towards the ivory tower. Jian Chen looked at the deflated appearance of Longchen and the others and could not help but laugh at the third elder. "Master, why did the president of the Alchemist Association personally give the order to receive us? In the past, only the patriarch of our clan received this treatment." "I don't know either, there must be something. When the matter is settled, we'll properly teach this brat a lesson." The third elder seemed to have a very bad impression of Longchen. Hearing his words, Jian Chen could not help but sneer. These past few days, because he lost to Jian Shersan and Longchen, his reputation in the clan had hit rock bottom, causing the third elder to be implicated as well. This enmity must be avenged. The receptionists on the flying demonic beast stared at the disciples of the sword worship clan, feeling very puzzled. They did not understand why the president personally ordered them to receive them as soon as they stepped into this place. The receptionists directly led the sword worship clan's Jian Chen and the others to the entrance of the ivory tower. Chapter 424. The Beautiful President. The receptionists looked at each other in dismay after being yelled at. They did not know why. The third elder of the sword worship clan was also a little confused. However, when he saw the middle-aged man walk over, he hurriedly took a step forward and bowed. Greetings, Elder Fong. May I know why the President has personally summoned me? Elder Fong's beard trembled. His red face seemed rather dignified. He stared at the third elder of the Swordsman clan and snorted coldly, "When did the President summon you?" "You were captured by the formation as soon as you entered this place." "The President did not summon the Worshipper clan. He summoned the few people you chased away." Elder Fong was in a bad mood. His words were merciless. The receptionists were also dumbfounded. They never would have thought that the core of the reception this time would actually be a few other young people. They subconsciously thought that it was the sword-worshipping clan's people who were receiving them. The people who were receiving them glared fiercely at the third elder. The third elder's face immediately flushed red, and his complexion turned slightly green. He felt extremely embarrassed and lost all face in front of the clansmen behind him. "Why are you still standing there? Get over there and bring them back. The President will scold me later. You can stay in the Nine Pinnacles Mountain and feed the beasts for the rest of your lives." The middle-aged man shouted. The receptionists glared fiercely at the sword-bearing clan, then hurriedly urged their beasts to leave. A short while later, Long Chen, Ao Tsungcheong, and the other three arrived beside them. The few of them were all stunned. They had just brought a group of people away. Now, they had returned and brought them back. The moment Elder Fong saw Long Chen, his gloomy and angry expression disappeared without a trace. He walked over to Long Chen with a kind expression and cupped his fists. "You must be Long Chen. The President has been waiting for you for a long time. I apologize for offending you earlier." It's okay, it's okay." Long Chen realized that the group was here to bring him back. The third elder's face turned purple. Jian Chen, who was behind him, also felt ashamed. Elder Fong, who had just spoken to them angrily, was actually so friendly to Long Chen, even the head of the Alchemist Guild had to meet him personally. Seeing Elder Fong leading Long Chen and the others into the ivory tower and walking up the stairs to the second floor, the receptionists snorted coldly and glared at the members of the sword-bearing clan before turning to leave. "I believe the guild leader is looking for this person. There's no need to make a fuss. I'll bring you into the tower to take a look," Jian Yuntian, the third elder of the Worshipper clan, said grimly. Everyone could see that his expression was not good. Although they thought it was funny, they did not dare to show it on their faces. When several disciples of the Swordsman clan were freely strolling around the tower, Jian Chen walked in front of Jian Yuntian and said, "Master, that Long Chen wouldn't be related to the Alchemist Guild's president, right? In that case, we'd better not make things difficult for him." The Alchemist Guild was extremely powerful. The Pill Pagoda was spread throughout the ancient desolate land and many other unrated places. Even though the four great one-star ancient clans were the overlords of the desolate region, no one dared to not give face to the Alchemist Guild. On the surface, the Alchemist Guild had always been neutral. They followed the creed of "don't offend others if you don't offend me." They were better than the experts of the ancient clans who were above the human sovereign realm. However, the Dark Star organization was the opposite. As long as they could afford to pay, there was no one they could not offend in their eyes. Although the Swordsman clan was powerful, they were still afraid of the Alchemist Guild. Jian Yuntian listened to Jian Chen's words and his face turned gloomy. After a while, he said grimly, "Originally, I just wanted to teach this person a lesson. Now, it seems that I can't just let this matter go." Jian Yuntian's voice was extremely cold and there was a hint of killing intent in his words. On the other side, at the highest floor of the ivory tower, Long Chen and Ao Tsungcheong stood there in shock. Long Chen's eyes were filled with disbelief. Because right in front of them, Elder Fong was respectfully bowing to a person. This person was the current president of the Alchemist Guild. However, this person was a woman. She was a graceful woman who was wearing a light purple cheongsam. Her height was almost the same as Long Chen's. The woman seemed to be in her 30s or 40s. Her appearance was not inferior to Yehalin's, but she was more charming. Her pair of red phoenix eyes were captivating. Her snowy white movements under the cheongsam were even more captivating. Even Ao Tsungcheong, who was a gentleman, could not help but take a few glances at her subconsciously. When the woman saw the shocked expressions on Long Chen and the others' faces, she immediately covered her mouth and giggled. She laughed so hard that her body trembled as she said, "Did you all think that the Alchemist Guild's president should be a 100-year-old old man or a tall and sturdy man?" When the others heard this, although they did not answer, they all had the same thought in their hearts. Long Chen could not help but laugh. He did not expect the president of the Alchemist Guild to be a woman. In his previous life, although he had interacted with the Alchemist Guild many times, because it was a neutral force, he had never seen the president of the Alchemist Guild. Now that he had seen it, he really did not expect it to be like this. Long Chen thought about it and subconsciously used his divine sense to scan the woman. Bang, bang, bang. A series of air explosions sounded in front of the woman. Elder Fang immediately turned around and shouted, "How dare you use your divine sense to scan the president? Do you want to die?" Long Chen was stunned. He quickly retracted his divine sense. This was not intentional. It was really a subconscious action. He did not expect this woman to have such a high-grade divine sense defensive item. It could even detect his divine sense. Of course, if he forcefully scanned, Long Chen had absolute confidence that he could break through this person's divine sense defensive item. Before Long Chen could open his mouth, the woman in the Cheongsam waved her hand and signaled Elder Fang to leave. A pair of long legs leisurely walked towards Long Chen. Finally, she stopped less than a meter away from Long Chen. Her chest was so high that Qing Xian subconsciously glanced at her own chest. "Little brother, it's very impolite of you to use your divine sense to scan a woman like this. If you want to understand me, why don't you ask them to leave and we can have a deep conversation alone?" The woman did not stop. She breathed into Long Chen's ear. Long Chen's lips curled into a smile. He said calmly, "Of course." After Long Chen finished speaking, he signaled Qing Xian and Yi Hailan to follow Ao Tsunqiong to wait outside. Yi Hailan frowned slightly, but he was the first to turn and leave. Qing Xian also followed Ao Tsunqiong out, looking back 3 times with every step. Elder Fang followed closely behind. Seeing that several people had left and only the 2 of them were left in the room, Long Chen stared at the woman in the Cheongsam and said, "Your Excellency, it's better to take a few steps back. Otherwise, how can we have a conversation?" The woman was stunned. She smiled charmingly and took 2 steps back. "Your divine sense just now did not seem to be of the strength of an early-stage human sovereign. Is there anything more bizarre than the fact that the president of the Alchemist Guild, which even the 4 one-star ancient clans are afraid of, is only a human sovereign?" Long Chen asked. Chapter 425. Trading and looking for trouble. No one would believe that a woman in the human monarch realm was the president of the Alchemist Guild. The woman looked at Long Chen with a charming smile and replied, "I usually don't show up in person. On the surface, alchemists are a paradise for alchemists, but in reality, they are just a tool for my clan to make money." The woman was straightforward, and her explanation made Long Chen come to a sudden realization. In the wasteland, was there any other power that could compete with the Alchemist Guild in terms of plundering wealth? The woman's eyes were like fire as she stared at Long Chen. With a wave of her right hand, several pills appeared in her hand. Then, she handed the pills to Long Chen and asked, "These pills were refined by Lu Yi. She said that you are her master. Do you really know how to refine pills like this?" Long Chen didn't answer the woman's question. He just stared at her with a faint smile. When the woman saw Long Chen's expression, she giggled. Her tight and delicate body was reflected in the Cheongsam, and people couldn't help but look at her. After a long while, the woman stared at Long Chen and said, "If you have any requests, feel free to state them." Long Chen seemed to have been waiting for her to say this. He smiled and said, "I will only teach 3 people. These 3 people must be proficient in the art of matrices. You can decide the rank of the matrices yourself. Secondly, I have 3 pill recipes here. Help me find all the spiritual herbs in them. Thirdly, I want the Alchemist Guild to make a move. Long Chen's words caused the lady to be slightly startled. Soon after, she frowned and said, although my clan secretly controls everything in the Alchemist Guild, we have always maintained a neutral position. Other than the third condition, I can promise you the other two conditions. Long Chen continued, I want you to sever all ties with the Bright Moon Ancient clan from today onwards. Why? The woman asked. Because I want this clan to be exterminated. Long Chen said coldly. The two of them talked for a long time before Long Chen walked out of the room. Qing Xian walked to Long Chen's side and said, Young master, that woman didn't do anything to you, right? Long Chen didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he shook his head. In fact, this transaction was very smooth. Let's go. I will bring you to buy some useful pills here. Long Chen said to the crowd as he took out a token. With this token, we can freely choose 100 elixirs from the pill pagoda. Ao Sanqiong's eyes stared at Long Chen's token and said, Why did that woman look for you? Why did she give you such a thing? Starting from tomorrow onwards, the Alchemist Guild of the Alchemist Guild for the Alchemists 10 for the Alchemists for Alchemists. Ao Sanqiong was even more speechless. This was the Alchemist Guild, and Long Chen actually wanted to teach people how to refine pills. The entire White Jade Ivory Tower was very spacious. Everyone strolled from top to bottom. Soon, the sky darkened. Using the tokens, they selected dozens of extremely high-grade medicinal pills. After walking around for an entire day, they finally left the pill tower and found a restaurant outside. If the other ancient clans were to be described as sects that were built beside mountains, then the Alchemist Guild would be a city that was built around the Ivory Tower and the 9 huge cauldron mountains. It was filled with merchants and everything one could think of. As for Long Chen, in his heart, he thought that the girl he saw in the Alchemist Guild was a merchant. Perhaps to her, the Alchemist Guild was just a tool to amass wealth. After finding the hotel, just as Long Chen and the others were about to check in, they were stopped by 3 men in armor. Each of these people was at the early stage of the human sovereign realm. Long Chen frowned slightly. Ao Sanqiong asked directly, What can I do for you, Alchemist Guards? The Alchemist Guards were the administrators of the Alchemist Guild. In fact, these people were not members of the Alchemist Guild. They were just recruited. The Alchemist Guild provided them with the medicinal pills they needed for cultivation, and they became guards as resources. This was enough to show the strength of the Alchemist Guild. In such a big place, every Alchemist Guard was at least at the early stage of the human sovereign realm. Several people stopped Long Chen and ignored Ao Sanqiong's question. They said coldly, You are Long Chen, right? Someone reported you for stealing medicinal pills in the Ivory Tower. Seal your own cultivation and come with us. Stealing medicinal pills? Long Chen could not help but stand up and say coldly, What evidence do you have to prove that we stole medicinal pills? However, several Alchemist Guards stared at Long Chen and the others playfully and said, If you have any evidence, come back with us. For now, you'd better seal your own cultivation and come with us. As soon as they finished speaking, they surrounded Long Chen and the others. When the hotel manager saw this, he hurriedly came up to mediate the situation and said, Everyone, please don't do anything. My small shop can't afford to be messed around. I don't think you are thieves, bang. However, as soon as he finished speaking, a middle-aged man who was the leader of the Alchemist Guards kicked him and sent him flying. He hit the counter hard, and blood kept coming out of his mouth. Then, this person stared at Long Chen with eyes full of sarcasm. He took a few steps forward and said, Come with me. I think these 2 women are also accomplices. Take them with us. As this person spoke, he actually released streams of origin energy and grabbed at Yi Hailan and Qing Xian. Humph. When he saw this, Long Chen's eyes instantly turned cold, and he disappeared on the spot with a flash. A sword appeared in his hand. Although the sword couldn't be unsheathed at this moment, it could be considered a high-grade spirit sword. At this moment, the crowd gradually surrounded them from all directions. They seemed to be waiting for a good show. The third elder of the sword worship clan and Jian Chen and the crowd sneered. They seemed to be ready to see Long Chen suffer. This alchemist guard was once a guest of my sword worship clan. Later, he was driven out because he made a mistake. If I didn't plead on his behalf, I'm afraid he would have died. This time, I'll make Long Chen suffer here. The third elder of the sword worship clan said to Jian Chen when he saw Long Chen attack. Bang! When Long Chen's figure appeared again, the sword in his hand that hadn't been unsheathed actually pierced through the chest of the man in the lead. Scram! Long Chen shouted coldly. The sword in his hand trembled, and streams of origin energy directly shattered half of the man's body. If he used any more strength, he was afraid that his physical body would be destroyed directly, leaving only his spiritual soul behind. The man's physical body recovered rapidly. The alchemist guards around him also gasped and wanted to take a few steps back. This person is so young, but he has the strength to kill an early-stage Renhuang in an instant. I wonder which heaven-defying family he is from. A heaven-defying family? I don't think so. This person actually dared to attack the alchemist guards. I'm afraid this matter is very troublesome. Maybe he really stole the elixirs? It's not impossible. He just bought a lot of high-grade elixirs in the ivory tower. Chapter 426. The ruckus grew bigger and bigger. Seeing that Long Chen had almost destroyed a Dan martial guard's body with a single move, more and more people gathered around, including several disciples of the sword worship clan. When they saw that it was Long Chen, they couldn't help but be stunned. The third elder of the sword worship clan coughed lightly when he saw them. Did you see that? This person looks like a gentleman on the surface, but in reality? Yet, he's actually a thief. He actually dared to attack a Dan martial guardian. This is simply an idiot's action. As he spoke, the third elder felt that he had regained some of his face, and the corners of his mouth unconsciously curled into a smile. The people around nodded one after another. Attacking a Dan martial guardian in the Alchemist Association headquarters was not a wise move, sure enough. The commotion quickly attracted attention, and a thin man wearing a purple cauldron-patterned armor walked towards the crowd. The people around stepped aside to make a path for him. The moment this person appeared, several Dan martial guardians bowed and said, "Greetings, Middle Elder." The thin man's face was gloomy as he nodded slightly. He stared at the person who had just reformed his body and said in a deep voice, "What's going on?" The person who had his body destroyed by Long Chen was a lower elder. He had 10 managers under him, but the middle elder was in charge of 100 people. This person had just reformed his body, and he only felt a burning sensation on his face. There were so many people around, and he was almost destroyed in one move. Reporting to middle elder, I suspected this person of stealing pills, and wanted to bring him back for questioning. I didn't expect him to attack directly and look down on our Dan martial guardians. This person bowed and said to the middle elder. The middle elder looked deeply and waved his hand. He turned around and looked deeply at Long Chen. His eyes narrowed, revealing a cold glint, and said, "Your Excellency's attack is too heavy. Moreover, since you didn't steal, why don't you dare to seal your own cultivation and come with us?" Long Chen saw that the middle elder was also like this, and he couldn't help but sneer in his heart. If he hadn't held back just now, he wouldn't have directly killed someone in the Alchemist Association headquarters. This lower elder's body would probably have been destroyed by him. Long Chen said coldly, "Since you're accusing us of stealing, do you have any evidence?" "Show it to me." Evidence? The fact that you dared to attack my Dan martial guardians is the proof. The middle-ranked Long Chen shouted coldly. Dan martial guardians from all directions began to gather around Long Chen. In the blink of an eye, dozens of Dan martial guards surrounded Long Chen. When he saw this, Long Chen heaved a long sigh of relief, and a wisp of killing intent flashed in his eyes. If it wasn't for the fact that he had a business relationship with the woman from the Alchemist Guild, he would have probably made a move at this moment. "Go and call your manager over. Let me take a look at this token." Longchen raised his hand and took out the token he had obtained from the woman and threw it towards the middle elder. However, the middle-level elder directly waved his hand and sent the token flying. He said coldly, "Take this person down first. We'll talk about the rest later." "How dare you!" Seeing the Dan martial guardians charge at them, Longchen and the others immediately spread out their origin force and engaged in battle with the Dan martial guardians. In the crowd, the third elder's face grew redder and redder. As long as Longchen had a conflict with the Dan martial guardians, regardless of the outcome, the bigger the conflict, the harder it would be to clean up the mess. Bang! 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 Longchen didn't hold back at all. As the long sword in his hand moved, the early-stage Renhuangs couldn't even last 10 moves against him. Especially those who used the origin of the 5 elements. They couldn't even withstand 1 move. Their physical bodies were instantly shattered. At this moment, everyone realized that not only Longchen, but also Ascension and the 2 women were far stronger than their peers. They were only early-stage Renhuangs, but they were no weaker than middle-stage Renhuangs. This made the middle-level elder feel a little uneasy. However, since things had already come to this, he had no intention of stopping. Divine light shot up into the sky. The situation was getting worse and worse. No one thought that Longchen and the others would dare to fight with the Dan martial guardians led by the middle guard captain here. Moreover, they had shattered the physical bodies of more than 10 people in a row. The people around them gradually retreated. Everyone's attacks were somewhat out of control. The dozens of people led by the middle-level elders seemed to be at a disadvantage. This made everyone sigh. The third elder of the swordsman clan also couldn't help but feel a little more afraid of Longchen and the others. This kind of combat power was really heaven-defying. When the middle-level elder saw this, he couldn't help but retreat more than 10 steps. In less than half an hour, the number of people whose physical bodies had been shattered by Longchen had reached more than 10. There were less than 10 people left in the field. All of them had lost their will to fight. They all turned pale and retreated in horror. The thin middle-level elder's face was livid. He said to Longchen coldly, "Do you know where you are? How dare you kill so many Dan martial guardians here?" Without waiting for Longchen to answer, he turned around and shouted at the middle-level elder, "Send out the signal. Ask the middle-level elder to bring people here to suppress them. If you can't do it, report to the guard captain of the Dan martial guardians in the ivory tower. Today, I'd like to see if this person can still overturn the heavens." The people around all thought that Longchen and the others were too reckless. The Dan martial guardians were used to being arrogant. If they had swallowed this anger and restrained their own cultivation to be captured for interrogation, they would at most suffer for a few days. The situation wouldn't have become so irreconcilable. Now, in their eyes, Longchen and the others might lose their lives here. The Alchemist Guild wouldn't care which clan you were from. However, Longchen stood in place. His eyes were still cold, as if he was waiting for the matter to blow up. As expected. Not long after, a mighty group of Dan martial guardians came here and surrounded Longchen and the others. There were no less than 1,000 of them. "You still have the guts to talk? You dared to kill the bodies of so many of my Dan martial guardians. If you destroy your own body and follow me to receive your punishment, I might be able to spare your worthless life." The guard captain shouted with great confidence. Longchen looked around and saw that Ascension and the others' faces were extremely gloomy. However, he sneered and said, "Good, very good." With such a big commotion happening here, the elders in charge of the lower levels of the ivory tower all came to ask what had happened. A few of them were stunned the moment they saw Longchen. They were in charge of selling elixirs on the first few levels of the ivory tower, so they naturally knew the token that Longchen was holding. Now, that token was lying all by itself beside the middle-level elder. When the elders saw this scene, they instantly felt their backs drenched in cold sweat. One of them even walked forward shakily, trying to pick up the token on the ground. Chapter 427. Seeing Lu Yi again, situations like Long Chen holding an elder's token were not unheard of. Even so, under normal circumstances, no one would be able to do anything to the Dan Martial Guardians if they acted first and reported later. Therefore, the two of them did not want the elders in the ivory tower to pick up the token first. However, when he approached the old man who had gone to pick up the token, he suddenly felt a cold killing intent. He saw that the cabinet elder, who was supposed to be on good terms with the Dan Wu, had actually slapped him in the face at close range. Bang! Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the middle-level elder was directly slapped 100 meters away, and half of his face was smashed into pieces. The lower-level elder stood there in a daze. His face suddenly turned pale, and his body stiffened. His eyes were full of confusion. He did not know why the inner pavilion elder would be so ruthless. The elder glared at him and picked up the token with his right hand. A four-legged cauldron was carved on it. It was ancient and strange, and it was surrounded by golden patterns. On the back, the word Yun was carved. When the lower-level elder saw the word Yun, he could not help but tremble. His eyes were full of fear. In the entire Alchemist Association headquarters, only the president could carve the shape of a cauldron and leave his surname on the token. This was the token of the president of the Alchemist Association headquarters. Plop. The lower-level elder actually knelt on the ground. The Dan Martial Guardians who came in a grandiose manner were also stunned. They did not know why. The elders suddenly shouted, "Get out of here. This person is the president's guest. How can you be so presumptuous?" The Dan Martial Guardians who rushed out of the ivory tower retreated like the tide. Long Chen stood in place, his eyes full of coldness. He said in a deep voice, "Today, I've seen the Alchemist Association's hospitality." Long Chen leaped out and appeared beside the middle-level elder who was just slapped away. Then, he slashed out with his sword and directly smashed the man's body into pieces. Seeing the man's spirit rush out, Long Chen grabbed the air with his left hand and directly crushed the man's spirit. The onlookers could not help but tremble when they saw this scene. A middle-stage Ren Huang was completely killed by Long Chen before his spiritual soul could even escape. On the other hand, when the lower chief saw this scene, he immediately knelt on the ground with a thud and kowtowed continuously. "Please spare my life, my lord. Please spare my life. I've also been bewitched by someone and that's why I'm here to cause trouble for you. Please give me a chance." Just like that, the lower chief knelt in front of Long Chen, shivering in fear. When the several cabinet elders saw that Long Chen was in such a state, none of them tried to stop him. Long Chen did not care about this person at all. His scabbard moved again, and the body of this lower head elder was directly smashed into pieces, leaving behind only a spirit. Long Chen narrowed his eyes and asked, "Who sent you to find trouble with me?" This lower head elder was only left with his soul. With Long Chen's ability to suppress the soul of a middle head elder, it would be too easy to kill him. The lower chief was completely terrified. His spiritual soul immediately pointed to the third elder of the swordsman worship clan who was standing in the crowd at this moment. "It's him. He's the one who sent me to find trouble with you." Long Chen looked in the direction of this person's finger, and his eyes immediately fell on the third elder of the swordsman worship clan. The people around all turned around and looked at the people of the swordsman worship clan. The people around them also immediately stepped back and isolated them. Ao Tsunqiong, Yi Hailan, and Qing Xian were immediately furious. They had never thought that the third elder of the swordsman worship clan would be so narrow-minded. On the contrary, Long Chen could not help but shake his head. It seemed that he had already guessed something. The third elder of the swordsman worship clan's face was already ashen at this moment. The disciples of the swordsman worship clan beside him also felt that they had lost face. Long Chen slowly walked in front of the third elder. His eyes were like torches as he stared at him and said coldly, "Your clan can be considered to be our benefactor, and we are also on good terms. Your Excellency, it's best that you abide by the rules. Don't make a mistake." After Long Chen finished speaking, he turned around and left with Ao Tsunqiong and the others. Jian Shan and the three mythological beast battle souls were still in the swordsman worship clan. the swordsman worship clan could be considered to be their benefactor. Longchen did not want to destroy the relationship between the two forces because of a narrow-minded person like the third elder. This time, letting this person go could be considered as Longchen returning the favor of entering the sword pool. Seeing that Longchen was about to leave, several intersect elders hurriedly ran forward and respectfully returned the token to Longchen. Longchen left without looking back. The elders returned at this time and walked in front of the swordsman worship clan's third elder. They said coldly, "If your excellency has nothing else to do, you should quickly scram back to the swordsman worship clan. It's best if you don't let us know that you're using the pill martial guardians to do things. Otherwise, even if they let you go, don't blame us for being ruthless." After being berated by these people, the swordsman worship clan's third elder naturally did not dare to talk back. In the Alchemist Guild, if these elders wanted to kill him, the swordsman worship clan would not be able to do anything. Everyone dispersed. Even the other disciples of the swordsman worship clan were very disdainful of the third elder's actions. No one stayed. Only Jianchen supported the third elder and said, "Master, I didn't expect this person to have the Alchemist Guild's president's token. It seems like he really has a close relationship with the Alchemist Guild. Let's go back. This time, we've lost." Slap. The third elder suddenly shook off Jianchen's hand. His body could not help but tremble from anger. Not only did the killing intent in his eyes not decrease, it became even stronger. Night fell. The Alchemist Guild's president passed down an order. All the pill martial guardians that made a move against Longchen that day were removed from their positions and chased out of the Alchemist Guild. All the members of the swordsman worship clan left the Alchemist Guild in advance, but Jianchen and the third elder's whereabouts were unknown. Obviously, this night was not peaceful. The night passed, and so did the morning. Before Longchen and the others could open their eyes, a large group of people arrived outside the hotel. There were men and women in front and behind them. The two women in the lead were even more excited. It was Lui Yi and Yen Li. When Longchen asked yesterday, the president said that the two of them were refining pills. Now it seemed that the two of them had heard of Longchen's arrival and had come out of seclusion in advance. Lui Yi and Yen Li quickly walked to the room Longchen was in. Longchen had just pushed open the door when Lui Yi threw herself into his arms. Looking at the little girl's pure appearance and the astonished gazes around him, he could only smile bitterly and pat the little girl's shoulder, indicating for her to get up first. Lui Yi's figure was extremely well developed, but besides refining pills, she did not care about anything else. She knew nothing about the ways of the world. "Master, you're finally here." Lui Yi hugged Longchen's arm with both hands with an excited expression. "You're tuning into the Mythic Realms YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.